like I said, in the lead up to this boot camp, I'm really just going to tell you how it is. Like, this is going to be real. This is going to be raw. This is going to be brutally honest. I do have a slide deck just to keep me on track to make sure that I cover everything that I want to cover with you, which is as much as I possibly can, about this whole idea of achieving your goals like a savage, like a beast, going after the most important things to you, the things that you truly care about, the things that you want to experience in your life, the things that are most meaningful to you, and getting them, and not letting obstacles stand in the way, not letting anything stand in the way. And I'm going to share with you what it is that I do, my experience in this arena. I understand, and let me say this up front as we're getting started. I understand that this might not be for everybody, right? Like, I understand that the idea of being a goal-achieving savage, or whatever you want to call it, doesn't appeal to everybody. In fact, there were people that who are near and dear to my heart that commented like, doesn't resonate with me. And I said, I get it. My aim was not to make this topic palatable. My aim was not to come up with some methodology to present. My aim is certainly in no way, shape, or form to become a fitness influencer, to sell a fitness-related product, to turn this into something I'm going to monetize. None of that. I have zero interest in that. My whole reason for being here today is to share with you this value, to give to you what has played such a monumental role in my life and my ability to achieve the most important things in my life. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it without holding back. I'm going to do it without sugarcoating it. I'm going to tell you exactly how I operate, whether it is a turnoff to some, whether it is scary to others, whether it is daunting to a few of you, whether you think I'm unbalanced, which I am. I'm going to just tell you like it is, and share with you and really pull back the curtain. We are going to go hardcore, excuse the expression, balls to the wall. I'm not going to look, I am here today to impart to you one of the most valuable assets, one of the most valuable things that I've really come to understand over the last really 3 decades of my life, today at 52 years old. And that is, like I said, how to conquer your most desirable, most important goals, most important ambitions like a freaking savage. How to go after it and achieve it, and do things that are big, do things that the majority of people in this world will never be able to experience, will never be able to achieve, and how you can do it, and do it without needing wild talent, without needing to be born with some gifts, all of that. And I'm just going to pull back the curtain, and I'm going to share with you, I'm going to share everything with you. Now, look, this is kind of broken down into 2 sections. Okay. The first section are kind of the principles that I live by. And I don't mean principles like you're going to see that this is just unvarnished. This is real. It doesn't get more authentic than what I'm going to share with you. But it's kind of the principles. It's the mentality. It's the mindset. It's the way that I think about things. It's the way that I look at things, all related to achieving my goals, all related to getting it done, all related to making it happen. And it's important that I do that first before I get into the specifics, which we're going to get into. I'm going to show you behind the scenes on like my training journal, my diet. We're going to talk about supplements. We're going to talk about it all towards the end. And I'm going to show you how there's so much crossover between this, to me, bodybuilding and what it is that I've experienced and the entrepreneurial world. I truly think that what it is that I learned from bodybuilding is why I've been able to be so successful, or reasonably successful, in business. So we're going to start off with the principles, right? So that you understand everything that I do, what it is ultimately based on. And then we're going to get into the nitty-gritty details, the specifics. And so some initial thoughts first that I want you to understand. Look, I'm not, despite this whole thing being called beast mode and me talking about achieving your goals like a freaking savage, I'm not a believer in the whole hustle culture, meaning I'm not a believer or supporter, or nor do I live my life by this idea of you got to hustle 24/7. I don't agree with that. I don't live my life that way. I don't like it. And I think that people end up regretting the time that they spent hustling and sacrificing everything else. I am a big believer in going hard and then playing hard. I believe that there is a time and a season for everything. There's a time and a season to go all in, and there's a time and a season to recuperate and recover, right? And I know from bodybuilding that the recovery, the days off, the recovery process, the time outside of the gym is even more important than the time in the gym, right? Because you got to give your body a chance to recover, to adapt. Before you go back and hit it hard. And I believe that the same holds true in every area of life. So I don't want you to think for a second that I am this believer in this idea of hustle, hustle, hustle 24/7. If you're not working, you're lazy. I don't agree with that at all. I don't believe that at all, nor do I live my life that way, nor have I ever lived my life that way. Now, that doesn't change in any way, as you're going to see, the idea that I am a believer in when you want something, you go for it. Right? You go for it until you get it, right? You go for it and you go all in. You deserve that, right? The one thing that you don't want, the one thing that I never wanted, right, is I never wanted to come to the end of my life or any point in my life and look back and regret the fact that I didn't go for something that I truly wanted, that I let time pass and I didn't go after it with all that I had, right? There's one thing that we can't get back, and that's time. Everything else is really replaceable. But time is that one asset that we can never get back. And so I'm not a believer in hustle culture, as you'll see. The truth is that I am lazy by nature, right? That I want you to understand that, like, if I could achieve all of my goals while I lay on a hammock, eat pizza, and binge YouTube videos about theology and philosophy, I would do it all day, every day. So I want you to understand that, like, my nature, right, is by nature, if I allowed myself, I would probably binge a lot of freaking TV and eat a lot of garbage, and lay around and ponder life and do all kinds of stupid stuff, right? And so I don't want you to think that this is coming from somebody that is naturally a machine, right? I'm sure there are a lot of people out there, many people that are just natural machines with endless energy, boundless enthusiasm. I ain't one of them. Right? I'm not one of them. I've had a lot of trials and tribulations in my life. I've dealt with a lot of issues, a lot of trauma, a lot. But yet at the end of, and I'm lazy by nature. By choice, I would lay around, right? But that doesn't change the fact that I'm able to go after and achieve the most important things in my life like a freaking machine. And I just want to impart to you how to do that today. Look, let me say this up front, right? And I'm going to say a lot of things that are probably going to contradict what it is that you've heard before, what it is that some kind of personal development folks have taught you. I'm not a personal development guru. I'm not a personal development expert. I have no desire to be that. Again, I'm going to tell you the reality. I do not believe that anyone can achieve anything. There are certain things that lots of individuals cannot achieve. Right? For example, things that are or require talent, for example, for Beyonce, as an example, to just say, hey, if you want to become a star, just go out and start singing at bars and taverns until you get discovered. Well, I can tell you that that's not going to work for me, right? And that likely isn't going to work for many of you. Right? Because you don't have that same level of talent. So no, I don't believe that anybody can achieve anything that they want, things that require talent and really natural gifts. But anything that doesn't require talent or natural gifts, I believe anyone can achieve. I believe as long as it does not require a natural talent or a natural gift of creativity, of art, whatnot, I believe that you can achieve anything. Right. And the reality is that, look, let me tell you what this is based on. In every area of my life over the years that I've wanted to achieve something, that I've wanted to go from entry point to top tier, elite A level, I've done it. When I went into the fitness industry many, many moons ago, right out of college, I went to college. Many of you don't know, I went to college. I got a degree in clinical nutrition. First of all, let me just say this, right? I'm going to back up because I want you to understand the full context of who's talking to you today. So, right, I was a terrible student, right? I was thrilled when I got like C's. My kids used to ask me, like, how many times did you make the honor roll? The answer is zero, never, nada. I didn't excel on the SATs. I was not a naturally gifted intellect. I didn't read a full book from cover to cover until I was in my my early 20s. What was I going to say? And I went in out of college and I started working doing nutrition in a health club. And I'll never forget, I started at $8 an hour. And I remember, looking at the sales guys like as beasts, as these animals, man, like that were just making money, getting a job done, hungry, killer, right? And the head honcho guy I ended up becoming friends with. Well, fast forward, right? I became the king in that entire company with 8 locations doing over $3 million a year collectively in my department in personal training. I became the poster child, and that sales dude came to me for advice. And finally, in the end, when I retired from that position to go full-time in my own business, right, I was VP. I started at $8 and I rose to the top because I wanted it bad and was making a lot of money very early on, excelling. And then when I went into the online marketing space, I remember hearing about these gurus and hearing about Jay Abraham and hearing about Mark Ford from Agora and meeting, Rich Sheffrin and all these people. Well, eventually, right, I became a household name in the online marketing space. And eventually my mentors came to me. Eventually Jay Abraham sent his son to me and to Top One, our mastermind, to learn. Mark Ford would recommend his marketers come to me. I ended up partnering with Agora. And today Rich Sheffrin is one of my dearest friends. And today we are peers exchanging ideas. And same thing in bodybuilding, as I'm going to talk about. I never forget going into the gym as one of the smallest guys in the gym. And by the time I was done, way back when I was in my early 20s, which I'm going to talk about, right, being one of the most successful competitors in the gym and having the guys that I used to look at now look to me and look at me. And the point is that every time I've wanted it, right, I've been able to achieve it. And it's because of what it is that I'm going to share with you. It's not because I'm smarter. It's not because I'm more talented. It's not because I'm more connected. It's not because I have more gifts. It's not any of those things. And if you tell yourself that, you are lying to yourself. You're buying into this kind of presupposition, into this narrative that is just not the case. I use always repeatedly over and over what it is that I'm going to share with you to do it again and again and again. And I have no doubt that the next time that I want to achieve something big, I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to use this same mentality, this same mindset, this same approach that I'm going to tell you about today. And so you're going to have the opportunity to use it today. And in a second, I need you to understand my journey. I need you to just bear with me for less than 10 minutes to understand my journey, because you're going to see how this plays a role. This journey played a role in the development of the things that I'm going to share with you about, the development of the mentality and the mindset and the things that I do. And so I need you to just kind of indulge me for about 10 minutes as I explain this. Now, let me preface this. If I didn't say it already, I just want you to know, right? There is nothing for sale today. Right? I have no fitness product to sell you. I have no product on personal development to sell you. There's nothing to buy. There's no pitch coming. There's no offer in the end or anything like that. I'll probably tell you about something maybe but there's nothing to buy. And so I'm not here to sell you something, right? And so I have no other ulterior motive other than to give you something enormously valuable to achieve your goals. And so, right, Rob, there is no beast offer. There is no offer coming. And so do not put your wallet away. Don't worry about that. And so look, I want you to understand a little bit of my journey. And it's kind of funny because I could already see that I'm using Canva for the first time. This is crazy. I normally use Keynote. Why I chose to use Canva is just beyond me. And so, but this was me, right, as a little kid. And I want you to understand that growing up, I was always very tiny. Even today, when most people meet me, they don't realize how short I am. I'm only 5'5". When I compete, like when I just competed on Saturday, I weighed 150 pounds. So in those pictures that many of you have seen, 150 pounds, that's it. Growing up, when I went into high school, I was under 100 pounds. So I was always a tiny kid. I was not athletic, right? I was always very stringy, very small, very skinny. Of course, I'm sure that there are some issues that I deal with still to this day that in some way, shape, or form are tied to that little kid who just wants mad respect, who just wants to be appreciated, right? Who just wants to be honored. I'm sure it's there if we dig deep. But very, very small, very, very skinny. And I hated it. I fell in love with the Incredible Hulk on TV. Like, I love the idea of being big. I love the idea of gaining muscle. I love the idea of because I was so small, because I was so tiny, because, right, I was always the tiniest one in school, because I was always the last one picked. But at the same time, and this is important, at the same time, I also knew that, right, I couldn't do things the same way that others who were gifted were doing them. Right? I couldn't, this is important. This is an important point that I'm going to attach to business in a second. And I'm going to do the best I can throughout our time today to attach as much as I share with you to the business world, so you can see how I carry it over and what it means to me in the business world and how it changes my behavior in the business world. Right. But so, because I wasn't gifted, I wasn't naturally muscular, right? I wasn't naturally strong. I didn't have the genetics that these guys did. So I couldn't do what the gifted did. I couldn't do what the talented did. It's why, like, when people are like, I'm going to follow the Arnold, Schwarzenegger program, his weightlifting program back in the day. Well, why would you follow a program that worked for somebody who was wildly gifted, genetically blessed beyond measure, right, to get results, if you are not gifted beyond measure? And the same holds true, right? Like I said earlier, in who you follow and who you listen to in the business world, in terms of mentors, right? For, like, look, for Gary Vee to say, and I have nothing against any of these people, right? Like, they're all, whether it's Beyonce, whether it's Gary, whether it's Picasso, doesn't matter, right? But when, for Gary to say, go out and publish content, get out in front of people and you'll experience results, to me is insane. Gary is charismatic. It's not about the content. It's about who Gary is and what he brings to the table, right? For Beyonce to say, go out and just sing in taverns and sing in bars and sing in clubs until you get discovered is nuts, because if you don't have her voice and her talent and her charisma, that ain't going to work. That's not going to work. If Picasso was just like, paint and you'll get discovered and you'll be a great artist, that's ridiculous, right? Do sculpture and you'll just, right? That's ridiculous. And so it's important to recognize that, like, there are certain things that work for certain people because of the talents and gifts that they have. I've always looked for what works for people that aren't gifted, that aren't talented, what works for the average, ordinary individual, not the gifted, right? Because if I'm not gifted in that area, then why would I follow what the gifted do to get results? And so it's really important for you to remember that. So I ended up, when I was 16 years old, asking my parents for, to get me a weight set. They got me these plastic weights with sand in them. I got my first Muscle and Fitness magazine and I started to weightlift. Now, to show you how tiny I was, when I was in high school, I wrestled. And I wrestled at the lowest weight class, which was like 103 pounds. And the crazy thing is, I told this to Russell Brunson. Crazy thing was that when I weighed in at these matches, everybody else was stripped down in their underwear. I was in my clothes and my wrestling jacket. I got on the scale in my clothes, in my wrestling jacket, likely with change in my pocket and whatnot, because I was so underweight. And so I decided that I wanted to start to weightlift. My parents got me these weights. And within like 10 months, I ended up gaining, 10 pounds or 12 pounds of muscle. And I was like, forget wrestling. I'm going to go all in on this. And this was one of the very first bodybuilding contests that I did when I was 16 or 17 years old. You could see me right here. And the funny thing is, you're going to see this, and this is absolutely over the moon cool. Is that the guy standing next to me, his name is Frankie Messina. He was actually the cousin of the girl at the time that I was dating, and he beat me, multiple times. So today, counting on Saturday, I've competed 10 times in bodybuilding, 8 times when I was between when I was a teen and when I was about 23, 24 years old. And this dude beat me every single time. And finally, I decided that I was going to take 6 years off from competing, and I was going to train like an animal and eat like an animal. I was going to commit myself because at that time I wasn't all in, right? Like I didn't even know what all in meant. And so I decided that I was going to go all in because I wanted to come back. I wanted to win. I wanted to beat that dude if he competed again, which I thought that he'd be done. And so I went all in. And when I came back six years later, so 6 years of focused, relentless training, right? When I was in my, so in my early 20s, I'm probably 22 in this picture here, also about 152 pounds in these pictures. And so this was 6 years later, 6 years later coming back. This is the Gold's Classic. And I won this contest. Now I'll tell you just as a side note, just real quick, and we're going to get to stuff. I promise you, just hang in there with me. It's important that you understand this journey before we get to the goodies. Yes, yada, there will be some whiz bang revelations. Yes, I believe that this is recording. And so as long as everything turns out okay, I'm going to get you guys a copy of the recording. My wife, Kelly, was there with me. This is Kelly and I. You could see the whole goofball New Jersey, look to the double hoops. Oh gosh, it's ridiculous when I see this. This is us, a couple of years ago, after 24 years of marriage. So my wife Kelly was there really in the beginning. She was there with me when I was 17 years old and stepping on stage for the first time. And she was there throughout this entire journey. So she was there at the very beginning. She was there when I won the Gold's Classic and when I took second in the Eastern USA and then went on the national stage and then, right. All of that stuff, all the way till obviously now, Saturday. The funny thing is that, right, this was that first show. And then after this, right, this dude, Frankie, beat me multiple times. And then I took that 6 years to go all in, balls to the wall, fully committed, fully focused, all dialed, came back. And that's me winning, beating him, me taking first. That was the last time he ever competed again. And so, right, given enough time, enough focus, enough commitment, right, I knew that I would exceed him. Given enough time, enough dedication, enough commitment, and enough focus, I knew that I would come back, right? And so the question really is, what did I do for those 6 years? What did I do? Well, I did the same thing that I've done as an adult, which I'm going to tell you about. But I want you to understand, I want you to get the full picture. I want to complete this picture for you because after this, I took off for almost 28 years. I took a long layoff. Basically, I stopped weight training altogether. I really kind of, for a stretch, not 28 years, but maybe 20 years, I stopped exercise almost altogether. I started a family. I got married. I had 2 amazing kids. I started multiple businesses. I grew those businesses, all of that. And then a handful of years ago, a few years ago, I started weight training again. Got into it, was just weight training in my community gym right here in my development. And then, like when COVID hit, I got a whole home gym and was training at home. And then of course, last year, right? So this is from 95 to 2022, the end of 2022, right? Was my layoff, right? Almost 28 years off the stage. And so last year, at the end of 2022, I decided that I wanted to give my hand competing again. The funny thing was that I had given a presentation at our Top One Mastermind. One of the 3 presentations that I typically give, I gave a presentation and it was about the lessons that I learned from bodybuilding. And for some reason, it just reignited this flame in me. And I started thinking about it. And I spoke to my wife, like, do you think I could do it? Come back. I mean, I'm fat. I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm all this. And I decided that I was going to go all in. And so this was me at the end of 2022. This was me in the center competing in 2023. So last May, and then this was me on Saturday, this past Saturday. And so what I'm going to share with you, right, is what did I do? How did I do it the first time? How did I do it the second time? How did I do it the third time? And how do I do this right, in every area of my life. Some of the pictures in Canva aren't showing up. This was me supposed to be. Oh, it is showing up. It's Kelly. It's not showing up on the other screen for me. And so it all starts with this. Now we're going to get into it. So now buckle up and get ready to take some notes, right? You don't have to write everything down. I'll figure out Canva and export this bad boy and give it to you guys and gals. You're likely not everything is going to resonate with you. I don't care. That's not what I'm here. I'm here, right? Whatever resonates with you, resonates with you. Whatever you do with this, you will. That's totally on you. But it all begins with this, that I realized that what got me here on the left, right, wasn't what was going to get me here. That my behavior, my actions, my approach, my methodology, that what got me here wasn't going to get me here. I knew, right, that you have to change. You have to become the person that you need to be to achieve the outcome, the results, the goals that you don't currently have. That's what you have to do. You have to change, right? And you've heard that before. But here's the reality, right? This is going to be hard work, man. This is not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, right? Like, I don't know any other way. What I know how to do is to put my head down and do the work that needs to be done to get the result that I want. Right. So when all these people talk about like, this is the easy way, this is the shortcut, this is the all that, I chuckle, because in all my years, I've never found that shortcut. I'm not saying that they're selling people on a pipe dream. I'm not saying that they're selling people short. I'm not saying that they're saying that because, right, they want to make it palatable for marketing and sales. And I'm not saying that they're not saying it for those reasons. I'm saying that the only way that I know how to get it done is to do the work necessary to get it done. And I accept that and I deal with it. I recognize this is going to be hard. I don't try to convince myself that this is going to be easy. I don't try to convince myself that this is going to be simple. I don't try to convince myself that there's not going to be obstacles. I don't try to convince myself, right, that there's not going to be suffering. I don't try to convince myself that there's not going to be sacrifice, because I know repeatedly over and over and over that there is going to be those things. And if I try to convince myself otherwise, I'm only lying to myself, and I'm setting myself up for unmet expectations. And I'm setting myself up for when I do come face to face with obstacles and issues and just suffering and the hard work involved, that I'm going to be much more likely to quit, right? And I'm never going to quit on my goals. I'm never going to quit on my goals. I don't care how hard it gets, because I've said to myself up front, this is going to be brutal, and I'm okay with it, because I want the goal more than I'm afraid of the hard work. I want the goal more than I am afraid of the suffering, than I am afraid of the sacrifice, than I am of the hard work. And so I accept it and I deal with it. I don't complain about it. I don't whine about it. I don't get upset about it. I don't try to figure out how to get rid of it. I don't try to figure out how to get rid of the hard work or the difficult parts. I accept it. I embrace it, right? And I would really tell you that, right? I go all in. I know, honestly, right? And this is that mentality thing again. I know that the more difficult something is, right, the more people that are going to fall off. The more people that are going to quit, the more people that are going to give up, the more people that aren't even going to attempt it, right? Because they're afraid or because they can't handle it. And so for me, I embrace the pain. I embrace the hard work. I embrace the suffering. I embrace the sacrifice, because I know that the more of that is required, right, that it's going to weed everybody else out. The easier something is, the simpler something is, the less work involved, the more people are going to be willing to do it. And the fact is, for me, in my weird mind, right, there is no glory in something that's easy and simple and anybody can do it. I've never been attracted to the things that anybody can do and anybody can experience and anybody can achieve. When I see something that's easy and that's like kind of a dime a dozen and anybody can do that, it doesn't get me excited, because there's no challenge to me, right? And so I'm looking for, like, when I thought about the contest and getting ready for the contests, right, I always said, I'm going to go to the depths of hell and I'm going to see what I can withstand. And I want to see what, if anything, will bring me to a point where I'm ready to break. And I will not break. That's the challenge to me, that no matter how difficult it gets, no matter how hard it gets, that I will not break. I will not give up on my goal, right? And you're going to understand why in just a little bit, because it's all about goal selection, right? That really drives this attitude. But you got to be willing to accept the fact that, man, this is hard stuff. Achieving something you've never achieved before and achieving something great, becoming, getting yourself into an elite scenario. And I don't just mean, like, look, I'm not talking about just having a $20 million business or 5 million, whatever the number is, where every other area of your life is a cluster, where every other area of your life is falling apart, where you've got a great business, but your health is suffering, your relationships are suffering, your marriage is falling apart, right? Like you're neglecting other things. I'm not talking about that. To me, that's not success. That you might have a successful business, but that's not success. Success is when those things aren't falling apart, when all the things in all the categories in all areas of your life are freaking dialed, right? Are freaking dialed. And so it's important to understand, right, that like, look, I know it's going to be hard and I embrace it and welcome it. And here's the thing, like I've said, like I said, I am willing to suffer for my goals. I'm willing to suffer for my goals. And when I say suffer, yeah, I certainly mean on a physical level, right? If part of the goal, right? I mean, when it comes to bodybuilding and it comes to getting in shape and it comes to getting stage lean where your body fat is 4.5, 5% body fat, you have to suffer. You're suffering physically. You're suffering physically in terms of the amount of cardio that you're doing. You're suffering physically in terms of the lack of food that you're consuming because you're forcing your body to burn fat. You're walking around exhausted, foggy, right, for a certain period of time at the end to get ready for the stage. You're suffering. Right. And I'm willing to suffer for my goals. And I know that the more that I'm going to suffer for my goals, the less likely it is that other people are going to come along. And I've always had the attitude, for what it's worth, I've always taken or adopted the attitude that I will outsuffer the next guy, right? That I'm not only willing to suffer, but I will outsuffer the next guy, right? And so I go towards the suffering because I know that when I'm suffering, like I always felt like when the diet was easy, when the diet, let's say for the contest, was easy, I always had a sense of guilt. Because I said, if it's easy, right? Like if what I'm doing is easy, then others are also going to do it. Then I'm not pushing myself. I'm not pushing myself beyond my competitors. I'm not pushing myself beyond the average, right? I'm not, right? It's easy. And if what I'm doing is easy, that means, right, others are also doing it. I want to push myself to a point where I know others aren't. Right. And so when I showed up at the contest, even though I didn't take the gold, right, I took a couple of second places. As I told you, the judges were looking for something a little different. The judges were looking for bigger. I was shredded, and you could see in my face, right? And you'll see over the next handful of weeks and months, you'll see my face come back to normal, not sunken in, right? But I wore that, what typically is referred to as that death face. I wore that and wear that as a source of pride, because I know that I pushed my body to a point of leanness, to a point of being fat-free that most others did not, right? And did not. And so the question really is, are you willing to suffer for your goals, right? And how much are you willing to suffer for your goals? Because that's where you really separate the men from the boys and the women from the girls. That's ultimately going to determine when things get rough, right? When things are difficult for you, when things are painful for you, right? Do you give up or do you keep going? Do you give up or do you embrace it? Do you say, right, these are the championship days, right? These are the championship moments. These are the championship times. This is where we separate the alsos from the champions, from the beasts, from the savages. And so you've got to ask yourself, but I want you to understand my mentality in that I'm absolutely willing to suffer for my goals, to the point where, so many of you probably are familiar with Top One. It's my highest level client group. We gather X number of times a year in the Top One mansion. There's probably a bunch of Top One members on here right now. Well, I'm going to give you an example of this. Well, at our Top One experiences, when we gather together in the mansion, one of the things that has become tradition is that Damien, my business partner and co-founder of Top One, he's really a master chef who just doesn't have a restaurant. It's his second passion that's equal to business and marketing. And he's a wicked smart entrepreneur, wicked smart marketer, but he's also just a wicked good chef. And along with the support and help of the team, he whips up a home cooked meal. And one of the meals that he cooked, where he brought in special cuts of meat from Virginia and special wine. Well, it just so happens that that one of the times when he cooked a home cooked meal, I was prepping last year. I was prepping for the contest, and so I did not partake. I didn't eat. I was dying to eat that, right? Delicious, home cooked, freaking like unbelievable meal. I did not partake. When we had one of our experiences one of our top one experiences, our last one just a couple months ago, or a few months ago in Puerto Rico. I had to get a separate room with a full-blown kitchen because I was at the beginning of of my diet, if you will. And so I had to get a special kitchen, and I had to have Glenda, our top one coordinator, get me all the food that I needed. I had to cook it in my room, and I ate all my meals out of my room. And I'm going to talk to you about those meals and what they were. I had to sacrifice that. My contest was just on May 18th, right? On Saturday. So we're at the 22nd. It was May 18th. Well, May 6th was my birthday. Turned 52 on May 6th. You know what I ate? I ate what I was supposed to eat for the contest. I did not deviate, right? On May 6th. May 7th was my 24-year anniversary, right? My wife and I got married on May 7th. You know what I ate? What I was supposed to eat. And so I'm sharing that with you, right? Because, right, I'm willing to sacrifice. I'm willing to do what needs to be done, right? I'm willing to stay the course, to stay focused, to stay on track. I'll be able to, like, now I can celebrate my birthday. Now I can celebrate my my anniversary. Now I can go out with my wife. Now we can go on vacation, right? And do those things. But at the time, I was willing to sacrifice. It was more important to me to stay on course than it was to enjoy a meal that I'll be able to enjoy at some point in the future. And so I'm sharing this with you because, again, I'm willing to suffer and I'm willing to sacrifice. The question is, are you? Right? Are you? And what are you willing to sacrifice? To what extent? I'm not willing to sacrifice my relationships. Like, I'm not willing to sacrifice, like, if my wife wasn't supportive and she said, no, I don't want you to compete, I wouldn't have competed. That's the reality. She reluctantly said yes, reluctantly, because she knows what it's like to see me go through that kind of, that kind of process. But if she would have said, no, I don't want you to compete, or if I really would have felt strongly that it would have destroyed my relationship with her, I wouldn't do it. And so you have to decide where that line is for you, but you don't want to lie to yourself, right? What you don't want to do is you don't want to convince yourself that it would hurt your relationship or something else if it really wouldn't, just to give yourself an out. That's where you've got to be honest with yourself about what you're going after and how important it is for you. And what does that sacrifice and suffering look like for you? In fact, to finish out this suffering, at one point for the last 6 weeks of my prep, so the last 6 weeks leading up to May 18th, I was having 40 ounces of tilapia a day. As I'm going to talk about much later on in our boot camp today, 6 meals a day. I was having 6 meals a day, everything measured, everything weighed down to the gram. Nothing went in my mouth that wasn't measured and weighed and exactly what it is that I was supposed to eat for the last year. After the last year, I wasn't happy with the showing, with what it is, with the physique that I brought to the table. And so I took a year of focus. I took what was typically referred to as an off season. And then for 20 weeks, I did a contest prep phase. The last 6 weeks of that contest prep, 5 of the 6 meals a day were tilapia. The other meal was egg whites, liquid egg whites from the carton, 40 ounces a day. It's not even showing up. I left this slide in on purpose because, right, that's, I forget what it was. It was like 80 bags of that tilapia in 6 weeks. Tilapia, 2.5 hours later, tilapia, 2.5 hours later, tilapia, 2.5 hours later, tilapia, tilapia every day, 5 meals a day for 6 freaking weeks. I would have eaten dirt if that was necessary in order to hit my goal. And so I share that with you, right? Because you have to understand that, like I'm willing to suffer and I'm willing to go to a place that most people aren't willing to go. And you have to ask yourself and be honest with yourself. Are you willing to go deep? Are you willing to dig deep, right? Are you willing to go to a place that others maybe aren't willing to go? Because I'll tell you that I believe that most people are just freaking fragile. Right? Most people, I don't say this. I love people. I adore people. I love helping people. I'm a teacher at heart. I'm a nurturer at heart. I'm a lover, not a fighter, but I believe that most people are weak, right? And most people make excuses for why it is that they can't get something done. Most people are excuse makers. They really are. They come up with reasons and rationale for why they are where they are and why they're not where they want to be. And the reality is I'm just not that. I'm not cut that way. I'm not built that way. I'm not going to accept that. I'm not going to buy into that. Anytime and every time that I find myself making an excuse for something, I feel a sense of shame inside. I recognize it right away. That ain't happening. right? That ain't happening. You have to understand, you have one freaking life, man. You get one life. You get one time on this planet. And as you get older, for those of you that are still young, in your youth, right, you don't realize how quick it goes, right? 75, 80 years goes like that. And you're not given any day. You have no idea when life is going to come to an end for you. And so, right, do you want to live it in kind of quiet desperation? Do you want to live it settling? Right? Do you want to live it making excuses? Do you want to live it where you're constantly putting off into the future what you really want to experience today in the here and now? Like, do you really want to delay life? Right? And so the reality is that we're gonna talk about what that means. So let's start where there are multiple categories that we're going to talk about before we get into specifics. Let's talk about motivation. And this is one of the big things that people ask me about all the time. Like somebody younger dude recently messaged me and he's like, how do I get motivated to do X, Y, Z? And I really don't have a great answer. I don't have a process. I don't have a framework. I don't have a system. Here is what I believe, and I believe it with every fiber in my being, that you either want it, the goal, bad enough, or you don't. Period. End of the story. You either want the goal, the thing, the outcome, the result bad enough, or you don't. If you want it bad enough, you'll do what you need to do to get it. If you don't want it bad enough, if you want something else more, right? If you want something else more, then you're going to lean towards that. Your behavior is going to lean towards that. But when you want something so bad at your core, when you daydream about it, when it gets your heart rate beating quicker, which we're going to talk about, right? When it gets your heart rate beating quicker and you daydream about it, and you fantasize about it, and you believe like in your core, like, I want that, right? You'll be able to run through brick walls. But if you don't want it bad enough, you're not going to be willing to run through brick walls. The reality is you either want to achieve the goal more than you want X, whether it's fitness, you want to achieve your fitness goal, getting in shape, abs, looking great, more than you want the donut, more than you want to eat the roast beef sandwich, or you don't, right? You either want to have the successful business, right? That gives you complete freedom and autonomy, or you want to be able to sleep in late. Right? Or you don't want to have to, get up early, right? You either want to sleep in or you want the business. And one of those things is going to win out over the other. But when you want it bad enough, right, then you'll get up. You'll get up early in the morning, right? The reality is that really the right goal, when you want it bad enough, you'll wake up without the alarm clock ready to roll because you just want to get to work progressing towards that goal, right? And so we're going to talk about what it looks like to choose the right goal so that you have that feeling. But I just believe I don't get it when people say like, I'm not motivated. Then if you're not motivated, don't do it. Like, is the aim to just be motivated, or is the aim to get the thing? Right? Like, you know what I mean? The motivation, what you have to understand is the motivation is the byproduct. It's the byproduct. It's not the vehicle. In other words, the motivation comes after the right goal. The motivation comes because of the goal that you selected, because of the outcome, the result, right? That's where the motivation comes from. It's not the first, it's the second, right? And so you have to understand that it's the byproduct. And so that's why I don't have a problem with motivation, because I'm choosing the right goals, right? And I know that when I don't have the motivation, then I'm going after something that I don't really want. That is not really that important to me, because if it was that important to me, then I would be going after it and doing what it is that I need to do. And so you really just have to like ask yourself, like when you're in this situation, like, what do you want more? Let's take the example of sleeping in versus working on your business. Well, what do you want more? Do you want to get that extra sleep? Do you want to stay in your bed more? Or do you want the successful business more? Which one do I want more? Right? Like, which one do I want more? Or you can take the opposite approach and you can ask yourself, which do I dislike more? Which do I hate? Do I hate being overweight more, or do I hate not being able to eat the donut? Which do I hate more? If you hate not being able to eat the donut more than you hate being overweight, then you're going to eat the donut. And I would say, God bless, then eat the donut. Like, I'm not judging you, right? If you would hate not eating the donut more than you hate being overweight, then by all means, eat the freaking donut and have fun and enjoy it and go to town, right? Because that's what you hate the most. That's what you dislike the most. Or if you would like to enjoy the donut more than you would like to enjoy having a six-pack or whatever of abs, then by all means, have the donut. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to ask yourself and be honest with yourself and not hide from it and not duck behind it. Which one of those things is more important? Which one of those things do you want more? Which one of those things do you hate more, right? Like, what is more important to you? I'll never forget last year when I was getting ready for the contest after that 28-year layoff. I'll never forget, I believe it was for Easter, going out to breakfast with my family and our dear friends. And they went to it was like an unbelievable buffet. And there was, there were waffles and syrup and there were, like biscuits, and it was unbelievable. The food looked, powdered sugar all over the place, pancakes, the whole nine. And I was having a black cup of coffee. And yeah, of course I wanted the waffles. Of course I wanted the pancakes. Of course I wanted to indulge, but I wanted to get in shape more, right? I wanted to get in shape more. And so I didn't indulge. I sat there and I enjoyed my cup of coffee and I didn't feel bad. It wasn't woe is me. Why? Because I chose this. I chose the goal. I decided at any moment that I would decide that enjoying myself, splurging on this meal was more important to me than getting in shape. I would have enjoyed the meal and I would have felt zero guilt. But I asked myself, which is more important to me? Which do I want more? I'm on a freaking mission, man. I'm on a mission. And so I'm not going to let anything, I ain't touching that. I'm not going to take a dab of syrup and put it on my tongue. I'm not even going near that because I'm on a mission. That's the mentality. This is what you have to ask yourself. And you have to be real. You have to come face to face. You have to come face to face. You have to say to yourself, look, with your business, if I decide to sleep in, right, multiple times, and I'm not saying you can never sleep in, right? I'm just using this. You get what I'm saying, right? But I'm going to sleep in, and I'm not going to work on my business. Well, in 5 years, if my business isn't where I want it to be, or in 3 years, or in a year, if in a year, let's say with our top one folks, we talk about adding $1 million in revenue to your business over the next 12 months. Well, if your business doesn't add $1 million in revenue because you didn't give it the attention, the commitment, you didn't bring the discipline to the table that it deserved, and you didn't, but you slept in more often, or you slept in every day, right? Instead of getting up early, right? Are you going to be more excited about the fact that you slept in? Is that more valuable to you than is the business? What's more valuable to you? These are the kind of internal conversations that sometimes you have to have with yourself. For me, I choose goals where I don't even have to indulge in that conversation because I know the answer. And so, right, you have to be real with yourself here about what it is that you ultimately care about, what it is that you ultimately want, what it is that you ultimately hate. And you have to recognize, right, I got one life, man, and I can't get this time back. Once the time is gone, the time is gone. And again, for you youngins, it goes quick. And so, really quick, little pause. If somebody can go ahead and just let me know, and just pop into the Q&A section that all's good. You can still hear me. You can still see me. Haven't seen anything pop up, and I want to make sure I'm not just talking. Yes, good. Awesome. Want to make sure that I'm not just talking into the ether here. Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. Awesome. Cool. The visualization test, right? So I'm big on visualization, not the typical kind of I don't sit back and, I don't, sit back in my office and set aside 10 minutes to visualize. And I just naturally, when I'm doing, let's say, cardio for the contest, I'm envisioning what my body is going to look like. I'm envisioning what it means to be in shape, what I would look like in shape, what my quads would look like, what my low back's going to look like, what my glutes are going to look like on stage. I'm envisioning, right, the seeing my family after I come off the stage, right, after, I'm envisioning getting the medal. I'm picturing it in my mind. And for me, when I would picture that in my mind, and oftentimes I'm doing this while I'm doing cardio, and so I'm listening to music, my heart rate goes up. It's amazing how when my heart rate actually goes up. I can see it on my Apple Watch. My heart rate goes up. It takes a jump up when I'm seeing that. And that's when I know the how meaningful that picture is to me. But I'm seeing it and I'm picturing it vividly in my mind, and I'm experiencing the emotions of that picture in my mind because I want to drill it into my core. And I was doing that every day, every time I was doing cardio. It's why for me, I always wanted to listen to podcasts or audiobooks when I did cardio, but I never did, because I always liked listening to the music, because the music helped me to envision and visualize the achievement of the goal. And right. And so I was seeing it every day, seeing that outcome every single day in vivid detail. And the tip that I'll give you is that for me, right, that I always use the first person perspective, not the third person perspective. So when I was, let's say, envisioning being on the stage in tremendous shape, I wasn't seeing a picture as if I was in the audience looking up at myself on the stage. I was envisioning it as if I was on stage looking out and seeing my family and seeing the crowd and seeing the judges and seeing their faces, right? And I was envisioning the medal. I wasn't looking at myself on the stage getting the medal. I was getting the medal, like seeing them put it around me through my eyes. And so I was always in visualizing this right through the first person perspective, not the third person perspective. But the point that I really wanted to make here is that if you choose a goal and you visualizing the achievement of that goal isn't getting your heart rate up, then maybe you've chosen the wrong goal. Maybe that goal just isn't either big enough for you, or maybe you've just chosen the wrong goal. Maybe it's not important enough to you. And you've got to ask yourself that, and you've got to be honest with that. This is why I posted this, I think, a couple of weeks ago, that if you struggle with motivation, you've chosen the wrong goal. You don't have a motivation problem. You have a goal selection problem, right? And I really believe that either people haven't connected enough with the goal, they haven't visualized it, they really haven't thoroughly kind of absorbed it, right? Or they've just chosen the wrong freaking goal. Because I just don't, I don't, again, I'm not a personal development guy. I'm not a, I'm not a personal development guy. I don't get it when people say, right, like, I'm not motivated to do it. If you're not motivated to do it, then don't do it, right? And pick something that you are motivated to do. Pick something that you are excited about. Because ultimately, if somebody says, right, I'm not motivated to do it, to me, what they're saying to me is that I'm not really excited to experience the result by the thing, right? Like, or I'm not excited enough to experience the result by the thing. Because if you were excited, if you were that deeply excited about it, you would be motivated to go after it. You might not know what to do. You might be daunted by the steps involved, but that's a completely different thing, right? That's not knowing what to do, or not knowing how to do it, or not knowing the best approach, or not knowing how to fix something is not the same as not being motivated to go after it with all that you've got. And so that's my take on motivation. I'll also say this one little tidbit, and then we're going to go into the next thing, is that sometimes you can find additional sorts of additional kind of motivation or additional pushes in wild areas. For me, right, I'm often motivated when people say negative stuff, or when people doubt me, or when people question me, or like when like when people just say oddball things. Like, I'll tell you, so this is a screenshot of a video that was taken from last year's contest. You could see I am the second from the left. The guy to my right won, and then later last year he went on to be a pro. He's I'm the only lightweight on the stage up there. In the masters division, the way it works with 50 and over, it just goes by age. There is no weight class. So they could be, I'm 150 pounds. This guy was I think 165. This guy over here, who took second, I took third. The guy in the middle won. The guy to the right of the guy in the middle took second. He was a light heavyweight, so he was somewhere around a $180. And then I'm not sure about the other two guys. Well, somebody posted on social media, the guy to the right of the guy in the center, I was going to say the bald guy, the second from the right guy, one of his friends took an iPhone video and posted it on Instagram, I believe it was. And the contest promoters picked up the video and they posted it on their channel. And what you could hear the friend saying when we turned around and we hit our back shots, you could hear the friend saying, "Oh, he kills it. It's over. Oh, he kills it. It's over," referring to his friend, the second from the right. Well, I played that video over and over and over throughout the year. And I said to myself, never again will that happen. Will I turn to the rear and have that happen again? That was a little added driver for me. And so sometimes, right, like sometimes you can find these, you can find these added little push things. For me, it's that negative, like, yeah, okay, now it's on. Now I'm going to go right now. It's on now. And for the last year, back was my priority. It was the only body part that at one point I was doing twice a week, right? Really working on feeling the muscle, blah, 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 the whole stuff that we won't even get into. But it all began with something that was a mad driver for me. Next, let's talk about discipline, right? Because this is another thing that people talk about. Like I hear this all the time when people will say to me all the time, you're so freaking disciplined. And they'll say things like, I'm just not disciplined, right? Or I just don't, I don't have a disciplined bone in my body, or, I struggle with discipline. And they talk about this thing, and this is so important. They talk about this thing as if it's this nebulous, third party like thing, as if it's like a gene, as if it's like an attribute, like, right, like, and I don't believe that it's any of that, right? Number one, let's talk about the definition of discipline. It's doing what it is that you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, regardless of how you feel. And I think the most important part of that definition is regardless of how you feel. Right. So it's not just doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. It's doing it regardless of how you feel. Like the reality is, right, and this is an important thing for you to grasp with my mentality. I don't care. I never look to my feelings when it comes to execution, which we're going to talk about. We're going to get to execution in just a bit. I never turn to my feelings for, right? Like I never, like, do I feel like doing this? Right? Like, do I feel like going in on this? Do I feel like getting this done today? Do I feel like doing my cardio? Do I feel like taking my supplements? Do I feel like drinking this water? Do I feel like going to the gym today? Do I feel like writing the sales copy? Do I feel like recording this video? I never turn to that. I never go to my feelings, because your feelings are fickle, right? And your feelings will steer you down the wrong path. I don't care how I feel. I just care what I'm supposed to do. Let me say that again. I don't care how I feel. I only care what it is that I am supposed to do, period. That's it. And what it is that I'm supposed to do, I do, and I do it when I'm supposed to do it. So if I'm supposed to eat at 7 a.m. and then let's say 10 a.m. and then 12:30 and then 4 and then 6:30 and then 9:30, that's when I eat. And if I'm supposed to eat 8 ounces of tilapia and I'm supposed to have 100 grams of jasmine rice, that's what I eat. And if I'm supposed to have, right, like at another meal, 2 cups of egg whites and I'm supposed to have 40 grams of oatmeal, that's what I do at the time that I'm supposed to do it. It's not whether I want the oatmeal. It's not whether I want the eggs. It's not any of that. It's not how I feel about it. It's not whether I want it, because that's even a feeling, right? You have to understand, I am, the thing that I want is the end result. Everything else is just the process, is the vehicle to get me there. So this is another thing, and this is important, right? So this is another thing, and this is wildly important that you understand, and that is, let me do this real quick. Let me do this. Let me take a drink real quick. I'm sorry. Just give me 1 second, because I could already feel my throat. Man, I used to be able to go for hours without my throat. A little. So, excuse me. So, look, without going, because I want to be sensitive to time here. So, right, like, look, the point that I really just wanted to make was that, right, like, I'm not, I don't care. You have to understand that you don't have to fall in love with the process. You have to fall in love with the destination. Right. So there's a mistake that people think like you have to love the process. I don't agree with that. I didn't love eating tilapia 5 times a day. I'm not a fish person. I don't really like fish. Right. I don't like fish, but I ate tilapia 5 times a day because it's one of the leanest sources of protein you could have. And I knew that it would help expedite my progress. Right. And so I don't like doing cardio. I don't like getting up first thing in the morning, fasted on an empty stomach and doing 40 at the end. I was doing 55 minutes in the morning, my first cardio session of the day in the morning. I'd rather be in bed, man. You kidding me? I don't want to do that. I don't like doing that. I never fell in love with that. I don't have to fall in love with that. I just have to do it because I want the end result that bad. And so you don't have to fall in love with the process, right? Granted, some people do. That's great. I love it. That's awesome for them. That wasn't me. Right? Nor do I believe that that has to be you. You don't have to fall in love with it. You just have to do it, period. And do it regardless of how you feel. And here is the thing that I was alluding to a moment ago, that with discipline, that discipline is not a gift. It's not a gift. It's not an ability. It's not a talent. And it's not some feeling outside of yourself. It's not something that you're endowed with. It's not something I don't believe that it's an ability. Like people, there's so much pseudoscience out there. Like there's so much stuff that I feel there's so much pseudoscience, to some extent you could say science, that I feel has done more damage than good for people, because it makes them feel like the idea of discipline is something much more complicated than what it really is. Discipline isn't any of these things. Discipline is a freaking choice. It's your choice, right? For me, discipline is about choosing that you're going to do what it is that you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, period. You choose whether you're going to have that donut, or you choose whether you're going to have your oatmeal and egg whites. You choose whether you're going to stay in bed or whether you're going to get up and do the cardio. You choose whether you're going to make time to walk every day or whether you're not. You choose whether you're going to take your supplements or whether you're not. You choose to do what it is that you do, right? Like you choose it, right? You choose it. And so discipline is nothing more than a choice. I didn't develop it. I didn't work on it, right? Like, it's just that the goal is so important to me and so valuable and so meaningful to me that, right, when I am faced with a choice or a decision, there really is no decision for me. Like, I don't even entertain it. You know what I mean? Like when I wake up in the morning and if I'm a little tired, right? Like, I don't begin an internal debate. I don't engage in this internal debate. I don't have it. I don't entertain it. When that little voice in my head or in your head begins to say like, oh, you didn't sleep good. Oh, it's cold out. Oh, your ankle hurts a little bit. Like, oh, you have a mild headache. I'm like, stop. No, stop. I ain't even engaging in that. The moment that you engage in that internal dialogue and begin entertaining that thought, you're done. You will lose. You will lose. I don't even engage. I get up. I don't even think about it. I get up, right? You could say I'm making a choice to not even think about it, to just get up. But that's what I'm doing, right? Like that's what I'm doing. I'm making a choice. And at the end of the day, that's what I believe. Yeah, there are tons of books. I've read them. I've read most of them, but many of you have seen my library in the back here. That's not a virtual background. That is my library in my home office, right? Like whether it's, psycho-cybernetics, right? Like I've read it. Cool stuff. Work on your self-esteem, work on your self-worth, I believe that all of that stuff is valuable. But I believe that at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is what are you going to choose to do? What are you going to choose to do? You're going to choose to go after your goal, or you're going to choose to continue to live the life that you are. You're going to choose to go after your business and the life of your dreams and the autonomy and the freedom that you want and you deserve and your family wants and your family deserves, or you're going to continue to goof off and watch Netflix. Right. And I'm not saying I don't watch Netflix, because I do. I'm not saying that I don't watch Love is Blind with my family, because I do. And I love it. I told you at the very beginning, I'm not a believer in that whole hustle culture. But when it's time to do what I got to do, I do it. Right. I do it. And so you get to choose. Right. And if you choose that you want to goof off, well, then God bless. Goof off and enjoy it. But then don't complain about why you are where you are if that's what you are doing. And that's the mentality that you have. And that's how you're living. Don't blame it on some nebulous third-party thing that you lack. Like, well, I lack discipline. You don't lack. There is no lacking discipline. You're choosing not to be disciplined, period. Right? Like, that's what I say. I'm not disciplined, Todd. You know how many people say that to me? Like, it's unbelievable how many people just comment on, have texted me, you're so freaking disciplined. Like, like you're so disciplined. You've got this discipline, Todd. Like it's magic. It's magic. It ain't magic. Wrong, man. You're just not choosing to be disciplined. That's it, period. I believe, and honestly, I am right. This is my boot camp. And so I get to say it like it is. You're lying to yourself if you're telling yourself anything else. You're lying to yourself if you're telling yourself anything else. And so I will, just for everybody, just so really quick, little kind of sub commercial here. If we have some time in the end, I'll take your questions, and I'm an open book. I've always been an open book. I'm willing to answer any and all questions. And so don't think that I'm ignoring any of you that are posting questions in there. I'm not. I just have a section saved in the very end for Q&A. Again, I'll just say it like this. This is my belief. This is my mentality. You may not agree with it. I don't care. You either want it bad enough or you don't. This is the same way that, like, look, this is why when I work with our top one clients, right, which, and, we're going into this phase where our top one our top one members, the members up to this point are really going to become partners with what it is that we're going to be doing for them and doing with them. But like at the end of the day, I'm not going to push them to do something that they're not willing to do or that they don't want to do. I'm going to tell them if I think that they're being, they're not approaching it the way that they should. Right. I'm always completely honest, completely upfront, completely transparent. I treat their business like it's my own. But at the end of the day, right, like I try to push our top one members to be beasts, to be savages, because I believe that they deserve it. And I know that they want it. Right. And they deserve it. And so you either want it bad enough, whatever it is that you're talking about, or you don't. And when somebody doesn't do what it is that they're supposed to do, I just say to myself, they don't want it bad enough. They should probably choose another goal, right? They just don't want it bad enough. They want to goof off more than they want to go after the goal. I really believe that, right? I really believe that, because in every area of my life where I wanted something, I went after it like a savage. I used to have on the inside of my training journal when I was in my early 20s, this thing that really kind of shaped my thinking. I had a training journal that I have a training journal, had a training journal, just a notepad where I write down everything. I'm going to show you an example of that a little bit later. And I had this thing, and this was a quote from a pro bodybuilder. And this, I lived this out, right? That if I discipline myself more than the next guy, I will someday beat him. I knew, right, with Frankie Messina, I knew it's okay. Like when he beat me several times when I was young, I just said, right, I know I'm going to be disciplined. I'm going to choose to do the right thing when I'm supposed to do it every single day, right? Like I'm going to do it. And I know that eventually I will beat him, and I believe it. I've seen it again, time and time again, time and time and time again. To deviate for 1 second, most of you on here, I believe, are entrepreneurs, are marketers. Most of you probably know me as this, this marketer, this expert, or whatever you want to call it, right? The reality, truthfully, is this. Number one, let me say this. Let me actually do this for 1 second. Let me stop sharing this and look at you guys. Is this, like, here's the reality, right? I told you, and I meant it. I'm not here to rah-rah you. I'm not here to sell you anything, right? I'm here to tell you, I don't bring anything special to the table. I was a terrible student. Like I was a terrible student. I told you I didn't read a book cover to cover. It's crazy to think with the library. It's crazy to think, right, that I've got several, published books, right? And by the way, if anybody wants to publish a book, Rob Cosberg, he's on here still, I think. Little plug for you, Rob. I think I got like an 800 and something, 860 on the SATs. Right? I couldn't get into any college. I had to go to community school. It took me 6 years to get a 4-year degree. I did not get accepted to any college. And so I had to go to community school. It took me 3 years to get a 2-year degree, an associate's degree, to then transfer to Montclair State University, finally in New Jersey, where then it took me another 3 years to complete my bachelor's degree in clinical nutrition. And so, right, I'm not handy. I can't fix things. I can do very little things well. Thank God I discovered direct response marketing. And so I share that with you because everything that I achieved, I believe anybody else can achieve. I really do. I believe anybody else can achieve. I didn't have any connections. I didn't have any tech skills. I didn't know how to set up a web page when I started. I'd have a buddy show me how to do that very early on. And this was pre-WordPress, pre-ClickFunnels, pre-all of that. I had no connections. I started with $800. That's it. I had $800. I put that $800 into my business. Like I registered an S corporation. I forget, I did a couple things. And then I never had to invest another dollar of my own money into any business again. Every dollar after that was made from the business. Why am I sharing that with you? I'm sharing that with you because I think that, like, look, for marketing and business, it's all a learnable skill. It's not a talent. It's not a gift. Yeah, there are some people that are gifted, right? There are some that are gifted, but I'll tell you, being friends with and colleagues with the smartest direct response marketers on the planet, having dinner with Jay Abraham, having dinner with Mark Ford, being, working, having Agora as a client, the best of the best, you name it, coming to me for training, education, guidance, some of the best in the world in Top One. I can tell you that none of them are intellectual giants. None of them. Jay Abraham is a little something special, as is Rich Schefren, right? They're on a different level in terms of their thinking. But I'm sharing that with you because it's all learnable skill. Yeah, you know what I have that the majority don't? I'm well read and I have decades of experience. But you can too at one point, right? You can too if you're willing. Right? If you're willing to give it the time, the energy, the effort that it deserves, and to be around the right people that pour into you the same way that I was around the right people that poured into me. And eventually, right, from them pouring into me and me gaining experience and me doing it and me studying and me doing it and me studying and me doing it, they then started coming to me. Well, the same thing is true for you. This is not about, you don't have to have some gift. You don't have to have some talent, none of that stuff. And if you tell yourself that, you're lying to yourself. You're lying to yourself. And so, all right, let's go back to this bad boy over here. And so let's keep cruising. And so let's now talk about, execution. Let's talk about getting things done. Let's talk about doing things. So, right, the first thing that I want you to understand here is that I focus on what I can control. That's what I focus on. I focus on me, I focus on my attitude, and I focus on my execution. What I mean by my execution in this context is me doing the things that I'm supposed to do. I don't focus on the things that are out of my control. So like my business partner, Damien, the co-founder of Top One and my business partner in all of our portfolio businesses, he's very different than I am in this arena. He is one who focuses on the end result. Right? Like he is the one who focuses on the end result. So let's take a fitness goal. So he's getting in great shape right now. Like I'm his coach. And he's the only person that I am coaching and will coach and would coach. So please, nobody ask me, to coach you. But he is like about like, all right, like my goal this week is, for the scale to move by X number of pounds and, for me to push X amount of weight in the gym and that sort of thing. He's very, right. I am very different in that I focus on the tasks, the plan, the strategy and the tactics that I believe are going to lead me to the end result, because that is within my control. The scale is not within my control. There were times throughout my contest prep where I went a week and the scale went up. And I was like, what the heck? Right. Now I'll tell you, we're going to get to it, right? Like weighing myself every week, taking progress pics every single week, right? Everything measured to the T, nothing going in, me not eating or drinking anything that I'm not supposed to, that's not measured, the whole nine, and the scale would go up. I don't have control over that, right? I have control over the plan and me working the plan and me executing on the plan. And that's what I want to focus on. That's what I want to do. I don't want to be engaged in things that I have no control over. I want to be engaged in things where I say, like, if I have to take 1,000 steps, I'll take 1,000 steps. If my goal is 20,000 steps a day or 10,000 or 8,000, whatever the number is, right? I'm in full control of that. I know that rain or shine, it does not matter. I can do it. And that's what I focus on to hit the end result. And that's what I've always done. That's what I do in business. And that's what I did in this, in the fitness arena. And so, right, I focus on following the plan, like I said, and doing the work, which leads to the outcome, right? So rather than like, look, if you say, I want to get, my ultimate objective is to get 10,000 leads this month or 1,000 leads this month. I don't care what the number is, right? Well, I would ask you, well, what is the plan to get that? What are you going to do that is within your control? If the idea is like, well, I'm hoping to get 10,000 leads just from kind of, viral stuff and referrals and whatnot. Well, you have zero control over that, right? You're basically a passive recipient of the outcome. I never want to be a passive recipient of the outcome, right? Like I'm not a passive recipient of any outcome that I desire in my life. I'm not going to leave it up to that. I want to be in full control of that. So, right, we identify the plan, right, the right strategy, the right tactics, and then we work those tactics. And then I hold myself accountable for the execution of those tactics, right? And that's really important. It's really important because it's a vastly different mindset to be focused solely on the outcome rather than on the activities that lead to the outcome. And so for me, I just want to be in control of, and I want to let, right? Because I can always, if the outcome isn't being produced, and we'll talk about this in just a little bit, if the outcome isn't being produced, then I tweak the plan accordingly. And then I'll tweak the plan, and then I'll go back and I'll focus on the execution of the tweaked version of the plan and then see if it produces the result. Right? Once I determine the plan or the tweaked version of the plan, I put my head down and I execute, period. Relentlessly. I do not deviate. I do not change. I do not think about it. None of that stuff. Right? And so I go into, and this is really important. This is an important part of my mentality that I want you to understand. And I used to say this all the time to Damien throughout this prep when he would check in with me, right? That I just go into machine mode. I go into machine mode, and machine mode for me really just means that, right? I'm just executing. I'm not thinking about it. Like I'm not thinking about it. I'm not analyzing it. I'm not questioning it. I'm not kind of rethinking the strategy. I'm not asking myself questions like, is this the right approach? Is this the right method? Are these the right tactics? This goes for both fitness and business, right? Once I've determined the plan, I implement the plan. There is a time for when we are going to look at the plan. But when I say for the next week, this is the plan, or for the next 2 weeks, or for the next month, or for the next quarter, this is the plan, right? Then what I do is I go into machine mode and I execute the plan, and I stop rethinking it. I stop analyzing it. I stop questioning it, and I stop learning all these other things that are in contradiction with the plan. I've been giving my marching orders. I'm now a Terminator, and I'm going after it, period. I'm in now machine mode. Done deal, machine mode, where there's no longer emotion involved because I'm no longer thinking it through. I'm now just executing. I'm going through the motions, so to speak, not absent of passion and desire or any of that, but you get what I'm saying. I'm just now a robot that is executing, period. End of the story on the things that are directly within my control. And so hope that makes sense. Right? And we're going to talk a little bit more about not rethinking the strategy constantly, because that is one of the biggest things that I see, one of the biggest mistakes I see people make, both again in the fitness arena and in the entrepreneurial world, constantly questioning, like, should I be doing more cardio? Should I be doing less cardio? Should I be eating more protein? Should I be eating less protein? Maybe I should be cutting back on my carbs. Maybe I'm eating too many carbs. Maybe I'm not eating enough carbs. Maybe I need to up my fat, right? Or maybe I shouldn't be using a lead magnet. Maybe I should be doing a VSL. Maybe I should go high ticket. Maybe I should go low ticket, right? Maybe I should be going direct from Facebook ads right to sales page. Maybe I should go from direct from Facebook ads right to a lead magnet. Maybe I should start to focus on JVs. Maybe this is the wrong promise that we're making, or this is the wrong angle, or you know what? Maybe we shouldn't be focused on SEO, or maybe we should be focused. And they're constantly rethinking the strategy, right? That is absolutely absurd. That's absolutely absurd, and it keeps you from going into machine mode. At some point, gang, you need to put your head down, right? You need to put your head down, and you just need to freaking execute. And you need to give the plan the opportunity to perform. And you need to recognize that everything takes time. I'm going to talk about that in the end, but I might as well mention it here. At the beginning of a prep, so I did a 20-week prep for this contest, 20 weeks of dieting specifically for the May 18th competition. Well, in the very beginning, you make very little changes. Like in the beginning, they're almost imperceptible, the changes that you make. Most of the changes that you make come in the very end, like the last 4 to 6 weeks. And as you get closer, the changes come daily. In the beginning, it takes weeks before you see changes. Weeks. You could be on the diet for 5 weeks before you really see a significant change in your body, right? Like, you know what I mean? When you are 150 pounds and you're 6% body fat and you drop 3 pounds of body fat, that's a wild difference. But when you're starting out and you're 15% body fat or whatever your body fat may be, and you drop 3 pounds, it's almost an insignificant change, right? Things take time. In bodybuilding, right? Your metabolism begins to speed up. Your body becomes more efficient as you have less body fat. Your digestion becomes more efficient as you've been eating these 6 meals a day. And for me, 300 grams of protein and blah, 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 right? And that's the same way it often works with a strategy in business, right? It's not like rocket ship, take off. Like in 1 week, I'm going to know the answer. It doesn't work that way. It does not work that way. And a lot of foolish, impatient entrepreneurs succumb to the emotional, mental side of the game, and they give in and they make a change prematurely. And you can't do that, or you shouldn't do that. And that's part of what I try to teach our top one members, like patience, patience. Even with Damien, my business partner, again, the co-founder of Top One, I would always tell him, like, it ain't how you start, it's how you finish, right? So it doesn't matter if it's a launch, right? Like, and you're like, wow, this started slow, or if it's a promotion and it starts slow, like, relax, relax. Give the plan the opportunity to perform. Give the plan the opportunity to gain traction. Just execute. Don't immediately rethink, right? Like, you're not, it's like, look, if you're a boxer, an MMA fighter, and you go in the first exchange of punches, you don't rethink your entire strategy. It doesn't work that way. Like, if you're, right now we're in the middle of the Stanley Cup, the first shift of the first period, when the New York Rangers go out there, they're not rethinking the strategy, their whole entire game plan when they went out there. You got to give it time. You got to let things play out. You got to give it the opportunity to produce. Let's talk a little bit about resources. So very early on, I'll tell you, when I was in New Jersey, I'll tell you, I used to train at this gym called Strong and Shapely. It was up in North Jersey in East Rutherford. And it was a tremendous gym, had a lot of bodybuilders. It was extremely hardcore. So a variety of old equipment and whatnot. It was like a dungeon. It was like a dungeon, like cement, cinder block walls, not like your typical health club. It was a gym, right? Not your typical health club. And old banged up equipment. Some of the stuff had chains, some of the stuff, right? I absolutely loved it. And to this day, I love the hardcore gyms. I personally dislike the health clubs for so many reasons, which could be a boot camp in and of itself. But I love the dungeon. It's why ironically, the Top One mastermind is about 15 minutes from one of the most hardcore gyms in all of Florida, if not the most hardcore gym. And so I always make time with Damien to go over there after our morning sessions to get a workout in. Why am I sharing that with you about this dungeon, this crap hole of a place, so to speak, excuse the language, of a gym with old equipment and banged up equipment? Because it's not about the tools, man, that you have, right? It's not about the tools. It's about what you do with the tools that you do have that matter. It's not about the resources that you have. It's about being resourceful. I see so many entrepreneurs, so many marketers online that are constantly like, they think that it's the email provider that they have. They think it's about the page builder. They think if they had this tool, if they had that tool, right? It's almost like if you use the same typewriter that Hemingway used, that you'll get great results, right? It ain't the typewriter. It ain't the typewriter. It ain't the tool. It ain't the resource. It's the person behind it. It's what you do with the tools that you do have. It's what you do with the resources that you do have. I told you when I first started, and there are probably people on here that can relate to this. When I first started many, many moons ago, decades ago, online in 2000, there was no page builders. There was no WordPress. There was no ClickFunnels. There was no Kartra. There was no Samcart. There were none of these. There was no Thrive. There were none of these things. There were none of these things. Everything had to be programmed with either Dreamweaver or like Microsoft Front Page. And Microsoft Front Page was made for like people like me, idiots that didn't know what the heck they were doing. And you could type in like as if it was a Word document, and then it would create the code behind the scenes. And that's what I did. And then I would turn the page over to like a coder or something like that. And they'd be like, what the heck is this? I don't even know what, and I'd say, publish it, man. I don't care. Right. And so we didn't have one-click upsells back then. Like, we didn't have 90% of the tools that are available today. And yet we were able to get the job done. And so, right, don't focus on the tools or the resources you have. It's all about what you do with them. Next, let's talk about strategy. So very early on when I was at, and this is important, I want you to listen to me carefully here. When I was at Strong and Shapely at that gym, very hardcore gym, I ended up bumping into this dude right there. His name is Dale. It was you can't tell from this picture, but he was short like me, jacked, Cuban dude, tatted across, tatted across his chest and his arms. Saw him, he was doing 415 on the incline. Like, he was just a freaking animal. And And one day, for whatever reason, he started to talk to me. He was with his friend who's next to him, the guy in the picture next to him with that 91 on the shirt, whatever it is. And both Cuban dudes, both big, thick, jack guys with Cuban accents. And somehow it came up with like, what do you do? Like, how do you guys train? I asked them. And he was like, we train each body part once a week, and we do like 3 movements, and we do 2 sets per movement. Now, at the time, I was using the best practices, like what everybody else was doing, what they were talking about in the magazines, like, which is like 4 different movements, 4 sets per movement, And so when these guys were like, yeah, we do three exercises, 2 sets per exercise once a week, and that's it, and we go home. I walked away from that conversation out and I was like, yeah, right. Right. Like, yeah, right. No way. Like that ain't nothing like what the best of the best do, that, or the best practices, what the most common approach is, what everybody talks about. I thought these guys were like, like pranking me or something like that. Well, it was a couple days later that I bumped into him again. And he was like, for whatever reason, he just took a liking to me. And he was like, why don't you come train with me? And so I did. And needless to say, the way that they described their training was exactly the way they trained. And I was absolutely blown away. And from that day on, that method became my method of training, high intensity, what's called Mike Menser, Dorian Yates style. This was even before Dorian Yates really became popular and made it popular. And this guy, Dale, became my first official kind of, coach or guide in the bodybuilding world. I want to tell you the lesson in a second, but I want to tell you what I look for in a guide. Now, this might seem self-serving, right? Because I am a guide, because I do have top 1, right? But I'm sharing this with you because this is part of my mentality. Number 1, I worked with a guide and a coach back then, Dale, and even on last year's prep and this year's prep, I worked with a coach. And I'll tell you why I worked with a coach in just a second, but I want you to understand what I look for in a coach. And I believe in coaches. I believe in going to people that know more than me for several different reasons. But what I look for, so that you understand, you use this for what it's worth, okay? Number 1 is I want somebody that's got the knowledge from real world experience over time. In other words, number 1, I'm not like, look, man, even the smartest people with fitness and nutrition, the people that have PhDs, and there's a lot of people out there that have podcasts and write books on this stuff. If all their knowledge comes from book knowledge and not empirical evidence, not real world experience from being in the trenches themselves over time, I have zero interest in having them guide me. I don't care if somebody's got an MBA in business marketing from Harvard. I would never turn my company over to them. I'd much rather go to somebody that or work with them. I'd much rather go to somebody that has none of that academic experience, none of that book knowledge, but has real world experience over time, right? Because there is just something about real world in the trenches experience over a long period of time that translates into real world results. And so that's the first criteria. Next is, right, I want somebody that not only knows the topic, not only knows it because they live it, they breathe it, they do it, they've got the experience over time, but somebody that does it themselves. Like, I don't want somebody that is an expert at something, like, and I'm not saying there are a lot of people that are experts at things and don't do it themselves. But for me, I want somebody that's in it every day, that's doing it, that's gained that real world experience and is continuing to do it themselves. So like my coach today for bodybuilding, the guy trains with intensity that rivals the best of them. Right. And so when he talks to me about intensity, it hits differently than if somebody was just like, you need to be intense, and they're not doing it, or they're not living it, or they're not breathing it, or they're not exuding it themselves. Next is, right, I want somebody who's experienced success themselves, the experience that I want, and has also helped a variety of other people to experience. So like my coach is a competitor. He's not only a coach, but he's a competitor himself, and he's on a higher level than I am. And he coaches men, women, young, old, all different weight classes, some in open bodybuilding, some in, men's physique, much more open bodybuilding, because that's really legit. And so, and then finally, I want somebody whose lifestyle and values align with what I want. And I think that this last one is one of the most important things because, right, I don't want somebody giving me advice on how to approach, let's say, business or any aspect of my life if they don't hold the same values that I do. Maybe they don't cherish their marriage or their family well-being the way I do. And so therefore, they might tell me to do certain things that could really cause an issue. I don't want to listen to somebody this is me, right? You take it for what it's worth. This is me. I'm not saying this has to be you. I'm giving you my criteria. I don't want somebody whose personal life fell apart while they were building their business, right? And maybe their personal life or their personal relationship, their marriage fell apart and fell apart multiple times while they were building their business. I might listen to them about marketing, but I'm not going to listen to them about how I should approach my business as an entrepreneur because what they did led to something that I don't want. And so this is the criteria that that I use, and frankly, this is the criteria that I've always tried to fulfill for my own clients. But enough about that. Just a little sidebar. The point with Dale, telling the story about Dale and sharing that with me, is that what I would tell you is that, right, you need to be open to methods which may appear on the surface to be unconventional or contrarian. Like you can't be closed-minded. You can't look, I'm just a big believer in that best practices are really common practices. Let's call it what they are. They're not necessarily best practices. They're common practices. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people confuse or conflate best practices with common practice. And just because something is common doesn't mean that it's best practice. And I'll tell you that when it becomes common practice, well, because the common aren't the exceptional, more often than not, it's the wrong way to go. This is why I would say that be wary of the way most people do it because it's usually wrong. Right? When I say wrong in this context, I mean that it's usually not the best way. And so you've got to be open to things that are contrarian or unconventional. If all you do is model what everybody else does, why would you expect to get any different result than what everybody else gets? If you follow the herd, as Dan Kennedy said, you get what the herd gets. If you follow the masses, you get what the masses get. And certainly in the online world, the masses aren't experiencing the success that you want. They're struggling, right? That's the reality. They're struggling. The masses are struggling. And so you've just got to be weary that the way that most people do it, just because it's the way that most people do it, doesn't mean that it's a best practice. It just means that it's the way that most people do it. Don't make it more than what it is. Be open to the unconventional and to the contrarian. If I wasn't open to what Dale said, which was in complete contrast, which was antithetical to the way that I was training, I don't know if I would have experienced the success in bodybuilding that I did, because I was open-minded and willing to do something different. And ultimately, right, like I said, that became what is typically, referred to as Mike Menser heavy duty training, where it's what's called low volume, low amount of sets, but high intensity, where it's, again, excuse the expression, but balls to the wall, all out, fully committed, sets to failure, beyond failure, in the shortest period of time possible, so to speak. And then you let the body rest and recover, and you feed it, you grow, and you move on. And the next point, the next two slides are one of the most critical two of the most critical slides as it relates to this section. Number one, and I already said it, right? I'm going to say it again, right? This is a major, major issue for people. Stick to one approach and stop constantly rethinking it. So you've got to understand this. You really have to understand this. And this is especially true when it comes to funnels and marketing. You take 12 of the top marketers online and you line them up, odds are you're going to find 12 different approaches. You might find some that are high ticket, some that use VSLs, some that use webinars, some that just use long form sales letters, some that use lead gen, some that don't use lead gen, some that use surveys. You take any one of the well-known funnel models out there, and you're going to find somebody that is that's killing it. And so it's not a matter of which one's best, right? There is a discussion of which one is most appropriate given your market, your product, your price point, and so on. But there is not this idea of which one's best. It's more which one is best for you based on your strengths, based on your skill sets, based on what it is that you do well, right? See, because if you can line up 12 of the best marketers and you can see 12 different marketing models and approaches, that means they all work. right? That doesn't mean that you should do them all. For sure, you shouldn't. It doesn't mean that you should do a combination of them. But what it does mean is that when you pick your approach, and this doesn't only apply to just the marketing model, but when you pick your approach and run with it and give it the time, the focus, put your head down, put your nose to the grindstone, execute, and give it the opportunity to gain traction, and stop constantly changing it. Stop constantly tweaking it. Stop constantly rethinking it. You got to give it the opportunity to perform. It's no different than getting on a diet and being like, I should be on low carb. I should be on, on high carb. I should be on high fat. I should be on keto. I should be on the Mediterranean diet. I should be on a balanced diet. I should be on a heart healthy diet. I should be on this diet or this diet. I should do the treadmill, or I should do the elliptical, or I should walk outside. I should do here's the reality. Pick one and stick to it and you'll get results. That's the reality. That really is the reality, right? Like there might be some tweaks that we need to make, right? With your marketing campaign, your marketing funnel, your marketing model tweaks. There might be some stuff with, right? But when it comes to the overall strategy and approach, stop freaking rethinking it, man, and stick to something, commit to something, make a decision that you're going to go in on it and stop rethinking it constantly. And the big thing that I say all the time related to that is not only pick one thing, but do not mix recipes. What I mean by that, right, is don't take a little bit from one expert, what they say, and then a little bit from this expert over here, and a little bit from this expert, and a little bit of this expert, and then take all the 4 great things from them and put it together. You're going to end up with a Frankenstein. You're going to end up with something that is a cluster. It would be just like you take a recipe and you take a little piece from this recipe, 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 right? What do you end up with? You end up with a cluster is what you end up with, right? And so don't mix recipes. Like follow one course. I don't care if that's me and if that's the E5 method and that's my approach, great. If it's somebody else that you believe in and trust, that's great. As long as you don't mix recipes and you don't constantly rethink it and you don't go right where it's a mishmash of things. Stop it. Stop it. Go all in and commit yourself, period. I'll tell you that's just what I have always done, right? If you take a little bit from a BMW, a little bit from, an Aston Martin, a little bit from a Bentley, a little bit from a Mercedes, a little bit from a Dodge or whatever, and you put it together, what do you got? You got a bunch of parts. That's what you got. You don't have the best of right? You're not taking the best of a Beamer, a best of a Ferrari, a best of an Aston Martin, a best of a Bentley, putting it together and getting something better than each of those. No, you have a cluster. You have a bunch of parts. That's all you have. Don't mix recipes. Don't mix formulas. Stick to one. Find the person that you trust and give them a chance, right? Give them a chance. When I worked with the coach, right? When I chose the coach, right? And I paid him thousands and thousands of dollars, right? Part of that process, and this is something I try to drill into top 1 members, right? Like you take a little bit of the education-based approach, a little bit of a unique mechanism, but a little bit of, sales pitch hardcore, a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this. You get nothing pure, right? You deviated from their recipe, you deviated from their recipe, you deviated from their recipe, and you deviated from my recipe, and you wound up with a crap dish, ultimately. When I chose the coach, right, I decided, right, like, I don't care what I come across on YouTube, what tips, what techniques. If somebody says this is the best thing I ever did, I'm not going to listen to them. I'm not going to listen to them. It might have been, I might have come across a YouTube video from some bodybuilder who said this was the best thing I did with contest prep, but it wasn't what my coach was having me do. Therefore, I did not do it. I ignored it. It was irrelevant, right? It was irrelevant to me. And so, right, I didn't do it. And so eventually I just stopped listening to, I stopped consuming any of that content because I said, I don't need it. I'm wasting my time here. I'm not going to take action on anything, no matter how good they say it is. And no matter how good it may be, for them. Right? It's kind of just like when somebody says to you, look, when you hear that, look, somebody's killing it on TikTok and somebody else says, I'm killing it with, Amazon ads. And somebody else says, I'm killing it with, YouTube retargeting. And somebody else says, I'm killing it with organic growth on YouTube. They all may be, all of those things may be working. Doesn't mean that you should do all of them. Doesn't mean that you should do any of them, right? You should stick to your plan first and foremost, right? Stick to your plan. Well, let's talk about measuring. Right. Let's talk about measuring. So number 1, right. This is an example of what my coach used to send me. This was just what he just recently sent me, you could see that he would make updates on a regular basis based on my progress. So based on my progress pics, based on my weight, based on my measurements, like my body fat measurements, he would make updates. This is like for what's called a rebound health phase. So this is me coming off of the pre-contest, getting my digestion back in order, right? Because my body is extremely sensitive right now in terms of water retention, weight gain, all of that. And so we're easing back to a reasonable diet, but he made updates on a regular basis. Every single thing in here, when he gave me a plan, there was no deviation. See, you have to understand something, that part of working with a coach, like, look, part of why I wanted to work with a coach was because for a couple of reasons. Number one, and why I believe that working with a coach is just a smart thing to do in every area. Number one, right? When somebody knows more than you and has more experience than you in some area, right? You're creating leverage, right? Why make the mistakes that you can avoid with their knowledge, their wisdom, and their experience? But also, right, I just want to eliminate the need to make decisions, because I know that when you're unsure and you don't know, right, the decision-making process produces massive fatigue, massive internal stress. So by working with a coach, even though I've competed now, this was my 10th competition, and I competed so many times, and I know my body, right? I wanted to eliminate the need for me to have to make any decisions. I wanted to allow somebody else to make the decisions so I could just go into machine mode and act. Right. I trusted that. I trust my coach emphatically. And so I eliminated the need to make decisions. I eliminated the need for me to get analytical. I needed to eliminate the need for me to go back and forth between, is this right? Is that right? Is this right? Is that right? And so he made the decisions, and then I just executed. Also, I know that with bodybuilding and getting ready for a show, and in very similar ways, being an entrepreneur is a freaking mental game. Right? It's a mental game where, again, it's a mental game where you start to think, is this the right approach to my funnel? Is this the right approach? Should I be doing more cardio? Should I be doing less cardio? Should I cut back on my calories? Are my calories too low? Right? Should I take a day off? Am I really making progress? My body looks terrible. All this. But when you get outside eyes and you get a separate individual, right, it eliminates all that. Right. And so I was able to go into machine mode. And I know that when I go into machine mode, when you go into machine mode, you're able to put your head down and get things done. And so there was zero deviation. I never deviated, not once. Everything that I was supposed to eat, when I was supposed to eat it in the exact measurement, I did. I followed it to the letter. No listening to multiple people, no mixing recipes. Followed it to the T. Right. And this is what I'm saying. Excuse me. I don't care whether it's me that you listen to, right? Whether it's, you join top one or it's somebody else for that matter. I don't care if it's that other individual. I might question why you would go with them and not me. But the point is that I would tell you, if you're going, then listen to them and follow what they say to the letter, and stop rethinking it and stop analyzing it, right? And stop mixing recipes. Stop bringing in your own. If you are not going to follow what it is that they say to the T, then you might as well not follow it at all, because you're not really following it, right? If you do 90% of what they say and you mix in your own 10%, you're not following what it is that they say. Right? Don't make this excuse of, well, I did 90% of what you said. Well, that 10% in a recipe, right? Leave out 10% of the ingredients, or change 10% of the ingredients, and you ain't getting what you're supposed to get. And the same holds true with your plan. And so if you're following or working with a coach, right? It's important to understand that Mark Ford once said to me, that success is in the details. It's in the fringe. Right? Like, it's in the fringe. It's in the little nuances. It's in the little tiny things, right? The little tiny things that matter. This is why, like, when it came to eating, every meal, like I told you, was measured to the gram. Every single meal was measured to the gram, not 1 gram over ever. Not 1 gram over ever, right? And during the whole pre-contest, I was 6 meals. Now I'm 5 meals. I don't care whether it was 6 meals, now 5 meals, everything measured to the gram, not 1 gram over. Every condiment was chosen based on, right? Like, everything was sugar-free. Nothing was more than 5 calories per tablespoon, right? And I would use a tablespoon at a meal. Every condiment was chosen and measured before it was added. Every beverage was chosen and measured. Nothing with sugar, blah, 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 no juice, none of that, right? Because it's in the minutia. It's in the details. It's in the fringe, right? So it's not like, look, it's just like with, if you take, you take, let's say, a lead magnet campaign. Well, it's not the lead magnet campaign. It's the nuance of the lead magnet campaign. It's the hook, the idea, the angle, the theme behind it. It's the promise being made. It's the message being communicated. It's the proof being offered. It's not that you're using a lead magnet when before you weren't using it, right? That's the big picture. The success is in the details, is in the fringe, is in the minutia. That's where, frankly, from a business perspective, most marketers, new marketers go wrong, is that they don't understand that it's in the detail. It's not in the big picture. It's in the fringe. And this is why every detail matters. This is why, like I said, every detail, every little thing matters. One deviation from one meal stacks up over time. If I added a little bit extra and I got an extra 50 calories, right, from in that one meal, and I did that 7 days a week, that's 350 calories. That 350 calories per week could have put me over my calorie limit for the week, taking me from being under to a surplus, right? Taking me from being in a deficit, which I wanted to be in, to being in a surplus, that 350, just from one deviation of one meal once a day. Well, maybe if I deviated slightly, right, and I deviated by 10 calories in each meal. I put a little extra. I didn't measure the condiments. 10 calories, right? Over 6 meals is 60 calories. Over the course of 7 days is over 400 calories. That 400 calories could have taken me from a deficit into a surplus, because the details matter, because the little things matter, right? It's the little things that add up to the big things, right? It's the little things that add up to the big things. So I adhered to the smallest detail. So when I say that I was eating when I was supposed to eat, what I was supposed to eat, measured to the T, nothing but that, that's what I mean, right? And that's the same way that, like, when it comes to a plan for the business, for marketing, right? And we're supposed to do X, Y, and Z. We do X, Y, and Z. We don't do LMNOP. We don't do ABC. We don't add to it. We don't do just X and Y. We do what we're supposed to do, and we address the minutia, because that's where the success lies. Every workout, every part of every workout was tracked. So every movement, every weight, and every rep was tracked. I'll tell you that ultimately what I strive to do is every week I strive to add the smallest increment of weight that I possibly can, right, to go up in weight until I hit 12 reps. When I hit 12 reps, once I hit 12 reps, then I go up in weight. If I don't hit 12 reps, let's say I get I get 10 reps, then what I do is the following week, I'm trying to get 11 reps until I get to 12. Once I get to 12, I go up the smallest increment that I can. So every week, every workout, every movement, every poundage, and every rep is being tracked so that I know exactly what it is that is going on. And I'm focusing on leading indicators. I told you this earlier when I said I focus on the things that I can control. I focus on the tasks that lead to the result that I want, not on the result. So I focus on the leading indicators, like how many meals am I supposed to get, right? And how much out of each meal am I supposed to get? Like I knew that I believed in the plan. I believed in the coach. So I believed in the plan. I believed in the process. And so what was my job? To go into machine mode and execute. And I knew that the coach would help me continue to tweak the plan accordingly based on the lagging indicators, based on my weight, based on my measurements. Right? The plan was changed based on the lagging indicators, but it was my job to focus on the leading indicators, the things that lead to the result, the things that lead to the result where I'm supposed to get my meals. I'm supposed to do my cardio. My heart rate is supposed to be at a certain point. I'm supposed to get X amount of weight training workouts, right? Like I'm supposed to train each body part once a week, blah, 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 blah. Those are the things that I'm supposed to do. Those are the things that are within my control. And I go into machine mode and do it and don't rethink it and don't analyze it and don't change it and don't mix recipes, anything like that. And then the coach used with me, these lagging indicators, my weight, my progress picks, which lag behind the things that I'm doing, right, to make tweaks to the plan, gave me the plan, and then I put my head down. He would send me the diet. I would say 99% of the time, he would send me my updated diet for the week when it would change. And it wouldn't always change, but when he changed it, right, he would send me the plan and I would say, got it, on it, period, done deal. Not, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? What about this? Can I mix this? What about this? Can I take this out? And I didn't take his thing and start making changes to it. None of that, because again, no mixing recipes. Now let's talk about mornings. And we are coming to, I got a few more sections and slides where we're going to get into some specifics, and then I will take your questions. Let's talk about mornings. So mornings. So this is just an example of like my morning. So I'm up at 5 a.m. and I was never a morning person, right? So never a morning person, but I chose to get up in the morning. I don't know if I would still say I love it because I love the productivity, but I would say I'm not a morning person. I'd rather sleep in. I'd rather get up at 9, to be honest with you. But I get up at 5. I don't really even need to walk you through this, but I've got this by 9 o'clock, what I've done, the first phase is 5 to 6:30, where I get up. First thing I do is drink 4 ounces of warm water, add a half a lemon and a scoop of glutamine. I do that for liver health, liver cleansing, and to aid in digestion. While I'm drinking that, sipping that, I open the day one app on my iPad with the keyboard and I journal. Usually I'm trying to focus on 3 things that I'm grateful for. Boom, 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 boom. Once that's done, I take this, then I make this little 10-ounce kind of beverage, which is like like a little supplement combination to help just with, stimulate the mental juices. It's a supplement called Neurostim from Granite. Both of those supplements are from Granite. I'll bring that into my office with me. And then from 5:30 to 6:30 for an hour, I do the first, what I call productive execution, where it's an hour of, it's usually writing and, for posting, let's say in one of our Facebook groups, writing and sending a daily email. It's usually writing. And then the second phase is after that at 6:30, then I do 40 minutes of low intensity, steady state cardio. So I'll jump on the treadmill. I've got my treadmill at the house. I'll jump on and I'll do steady state cardio. So I get my heart rate up to about 120, 123-ish, and I stay there for 40 minutes. So I'm doing cardio. And right now I'm doing cardio 6 days a week. Fasted. I was doing 5 days a week of cardio, but now I'm doing it 6 days right now, which I'll probably cut back just for this rebound phase. After that cardio, then I eat meal number 1, what I wrote down as breakfast here. Right after I eat that breakfast, I take my health supplements, and then I'll go into a devotional time, read the Bible every day, pray, and then I read a business book for 15 minutes. And that's a chunk of time there. So I like to give myself time to read the Bible, to pray. That's my kind of, meditation, if you will, prayer. And then I'll read a business book. And then I go into my second productive execution phase. You don't need to worry about the rest of the day. And then I weight train at 2 o'clock. I weight train at 2 o'clock because I want 3 meals in me. And I can answer any questions that you have about kind of what those meals look like. Cause the most important, like I'll talk a little bit about it actually in a second. Let's talk about training. I kind of talked about this. We'll go through this quick because these are specifics. And if you have questions about this, I'll cover it. So training, I train 5 days a week with weights. I hit each body part once a week. And so I do, let me see. I think I actually break this down for you. Yeah. Here's the split. Monday at 2 o'clock, I do back. Tuesday, I do chest and delts. Wednesday, I take off. Thursday, I do legs, so quads and hamstrings. I start with hamstrings, then go to quads. Been a big game changer for me. Friday, I do back and delts again, a pump day, just because my back is my weakest body part, weakest in terms of development. And so I do an extra day there. Saturday, I do arms, and then I take Sunday off. At this age, I do a bit of higher volume. So I told you that, right? I followed the HIIT training. I followed the HIIT training up until really up until last year and then I went to a higher volume just because at 52 years old, I'm very sensitive to injury prevention because of the amount of time that it takes to recover from that. And 5 days a week, I was 5, right now it's 6. I do fasted, like I said, first thing in the morning, low intensity, steady state cardio. Let's talk about nutrition. So 6 meals. Right now it's 5 during the rebound. It was 6 and it'll go back to 6. 6 meals a day, spaced out 2 to 2.5 hours apart. And I cycle carbs. So on my non-training days, my carbs drop significantly. My protein never changes and my fat never changes. But I cycle my carbs, and that's to, just for those of you that are interested, that's to help keep my body insulin sensitive. So, right, non-training days, I don't need the carbs, I don't need the calories, but it also keeps my body insulin sensitive. And so there you go. All solid food, no powders. So I used to use a protein powder, a whey protein isolate. Loved it. Great. Easy on the digestion, high quality. I don't think that there's anything wrong with it, but I just really wanted to see what kind of results I would get from consuming just all solid, quality food. And so gallon of water every day. And then I take early morning supplements, which I told you about. That's the after the glutamine with the lemon water, and then the neuro stuff, the neurostim and the vasoblast. And then I take my morning health supplements, which I can talk about. I know somebody's got a question about that. So when we get to the question section, I'll tell you what those health supplements are. And then I take a pre-workout to a combination, a very little bit of a stimulant-based one, and then a non-stimulant-based one. And then I have an intra-training supplement, which is primarily essential amino acids and carbs, a specific type of carbohydrate. I never used to have it. That should be intra training. I never used to have an intra training carb drink. Game changer. It was a game changer. I implemented it last year based on what the coach told me. Total game changer. I actually had Damien, my business partner, do it. And he also said total game changer. And so that's also, it's called Recover, and it's also from Granite. Early morning, I said this. My health supplements, which I could talk about, I already said this. I actually said this. And so I just want to talk a couple things about contest prep because this is related to business. And so I kind of already said this. Number one, right? You got to trust the process, but like you can't be changing things. This is the same thing with like your business, with your plan, with your strategy, with your marketing model. You got to trust the process, and you got to give the process time, right? You got to give the process time. Like you got to trust the process. I always said, like in the very beginning, right? I said, things don't move quickly in the beginning. Very little changes early on, almost unnoticeable. I said almost imperceptible, but you got to trust the process, because what the average person does is they panic. They panic. I'm not seeing changes. It's not happening. Same thing with business, right? It's not happening. It's not working. It's not, and they just haven't given it the time to gain traction. And so, right, like you got to recognize that things don't change quickly early on. You got to build momentum. This is where you've got to be mentally strong, right? You've got to be mentally strong. And so most of the battle is a mental game. This is why, like, you need a mental, and this is why I also value a coach, right? I value you. If not a coach, at least get around smart people that have more experience than you, that have done this, that have lived it, that have gained or achieve the outcomes that you want, because they can help you, right? Like with bodybuilding, you start to see things that aren't there. You start to feel like, you start to look at, it's not working. I'm not in shape. I'm falling behind. Like I need to make changes. I need to do this, because you're mentally, it's just wreaking havoc, right? And bodybuilding is even more severe than being in business, because hormonally you're off, right? And so like, especially in the end, like towards the end, like, and it's just so the battle is in your head, between your ears. And you need to be strong enough to not to succumb to that. You really need to, gang, really, you need to be strong enough to not succumb on multiple levels. Going back to the discipline, right? Like to making the choice, to not succumbing to that internal voice, right? To not succumbing to the lies, to the false narrative that like of I don't have discipline, others do. I'm not a morning person, others are. I'm not gifted like they are. I don't have the talent. Like it's so much a mental game. And that's part of support and all that jazz. But it is, like, look, you've got to be strong enough to do that. Whether I had support or not, whether you have support or not, you got to be tough enough mentally to withstand that battle, to fight it, to stay strong and stay true to what it is that you want. Right. And I'll tell you, before we take the, before we take questions, I'll tell you that, like, look, I'm going to say it again. I said it once before. I want to say it again. That, like, look, this is your freaking life, man. This isn't a game. There are no do-overs here, right? And we all have a short period of time, and you never know when your time is going to come to the end. I believe that you deserve to go after what it is that you want. You deserve to experience what it is that you ultimately want. And so I don't want to see you operate like the average. I don't want to see you operate like the masses, because the masses are living lives of quiet desperation. And so you want to go after what it is that you want with everything that you've got because you deserve it. And this is your one freaking life. And you don't want to look back at any point and say, I should have, man. I could have, man. If only. I never want to utter those words. And I never want to hear any of you have to utter those words. And so I hope that you go after it. Um, and so let's take some questions. Actually, before we do that, let me say this. So I don't have an offer, right? So don't worry. But I do want to mention this. So many of you know about Top One. Like I said, it's my highest level client group. I want to share something publicly that I've never shared before. And then I'm going to jump in and answer the questions and just bang these out for you guys and let you guys roll. I'm not too far over. And so I'll get you guys out of here in 10 minutes tops. But so look, so I've talked about Top One. Top One is really my major focus. We're taking our Top One members and we are Top One gathers in the Top One mansion 3 times a year. These folks that are currently in Top One pay a lot of money to be in Top One, to be around me, to get guidance from me, to get guidance from my team, to get personal critiques and edits and improvements on their campaigns and all that. Like I said, there's many folks on here. Well, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going really more in on partnering with our current Top One members. We're going to really call them Top One partners. And so what we've really decided to do is we've decided that to really open up Top One to other marketers who, let me say this, we've decided to create a level in Top One where folks can come to the Top One experiences with me, with my team, with other Top One members, gain the knowledge from me, from us. They won't be able to get coaching with me or personal one-on-one with me, but it's 15 grand for the year. And that's it. We've never done anything like that before. It's incredibly inexpensive for what I do. When I used to take clients one-on-one for a day, it was 15 grand. This is 15 grand for the year. Comes with 3 live experiences in the mansion with me, with the team, with other Top One members. We're going to be adding in 2 boot camps, additional boot camps per year, which you can attend. You get access to all of our training courses, all of our entire training library, everything in there and everything new that gets added in there. And it's 15 grand. We're only looking to add about 15 of these members at this level right now, just because we want to make sure that we can continue to not only care for everybody, but that we can continue to add all these new things that we're adding for our Top One partners who are our priority. But if you want to join me, and you want to join the Top One folks and you want to be at our live experiences, we have one coming up in 3 weeks, as a matter of fact. You want to get access to all my training stuff. You want to be part of that. You want to really just learn more about that. You can go to toddbrown.me/Top One, TOPONE, toddbrown.me/Top One. You'll put down a little deposit and then you'll be able to jump on the phone with either me or Damien, get all the details. And it's fully refundable. And so if you turn out to where you're not interested, that's totally cool. Or if we feel like you're just not the right fit, then that is refunded. But we are only looking for 15 right now to add. And so if something that you're interested in learning more about, toddbrown.me/Top One, TOPONE. You'll put down a deposit. It's 15 grand for the year. After, that deposit is included in that. We've never done anything remotely close to that. I can tell you that our Top One partners pay significantly more to get access to me and my team and whatnot. But there you go. toddbrown.me/Top One. Oh, Glenda's on here. Glenda popped it into the Q&A section. So with that being said, let me take the questions and I'm going to cruise through this. What's your target amount of sleep hours for sleep? 7. Used to be 8, but I'm able to get away with 7 now. So 7. I'm running a marathon in 2 weeks, been running and training, but is there a stimulant health supplement that will help with endurance? I mean, I like creatine. I think creatine is it's backed by more science, more data than any other performance-based supplement. It's one of the only ones that I would recommend and feel comfortable recommending it from a performance basis. And so creatine is what I would remember. Are you doing, Hector asks, am I doing HIT also? No, not at 52 anymore, just because of the risk of injury. One of the things that I found is that all of the bodybuilders that were using HIT ended up at some point later in their career suffered an injury. Dorian Yates tore his bicep. And so, no, today, because I'm 52 years old, and like I said, the recovery process isn't the same. I do much more high volume. I'll tell you what, for what it's worth for everybody, that one of the best things that you can do, it's one of the best pieces of advice that I give people when it comes to weight training, is move the muscle, not the weight. Right. Like I don't even really call it weight training because it's not weight training. I'm in there, I'm training the muscle. And it's why I don't say I'm not exercising. I'm training the muscle. And so move the muscle, not the weight, right? Like I don't care how much weight you lift, move the muscle, contract the muscle, recognize, right? I'm looking to lengthen and I'm looking to contract. And I want to understand the way that the muscle works, right? I want to understand, insertion, like how it works. I'm working the muscle. I'm not merely moving the weight. And so uh, what is 15? I'm not sure what you're asking. Natty, TRT, or junk. So I've been on TRT from my doctor since 48. So my testosterone was 190. And so dropped down to 190. I felt like absolute garbage. And I tried to I tried to deal with it naturally and I just couldn't, it wouldn't budge. And so now I'm on very little TRT and my testosterone's like almost 500. And so still not as high as it could be, but that's it. And so no other crazy stuff or anything like that. I'm going to try to send the recording, Nacho, by email. The problem is that some people registered right through Zoom and not and so wasn't on our email list. And so I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to do that. 24. So I enjoyed the webinar very much. Thanks for doing this. I'm 24, new to business, growing a marketing agency. I've managed to get a couple of clients, but I feel confused all the time about how to make it successful. And it makes so hard to go into execution mode. Like you said, I know coaches can be pricey, which has been my main fear as I'm still starting my business, limited resources. Do you think a coach is still a good idea? I think a coach is even more valuable. I know that sounds, sounds self-serving. Like I said, whether it's me or it's somebody else, I think a coach is even more valuable at the beginning because a coach will save you, will keep you from making the mistakes and keep you from wasting time, money, and effort. And so I do. And like I said, whether it's with me or it's with somebody else, I think it's a no-brainer. The steroid thing I answered already. So I am on TRT, have been since 48, so I'm 52. How do you know? And nothing, like people have asked me, like, do you use like, Winstrol or Tren, or I don't use any of that. How do you know what amount of suffering is too much? In the past, I pushed myself to a point where my health took damage and I'm afraid of going back there. So I wouldn't damage my health. So that's where and it all depends on what you mean by damage your health, right? Like in other words, like if hypothetically, and I go for blood work every 3 months. So I have a concierge doctor. And so I'm just a big believer in monitoring blood markers. And so let's say I was on the pre-contest diet and for whatever reason, my HDL, my good cholesterol plummeted, or let's just say for whatever strange, crazy reason, my LDL shot through the roof, or let's say my blood pressure shot through the roof, which by the way, is like why I'm following this rebound diet right now and not just going back to eating whatever it is that I want. Because I don't want my blood pressure to spike from additional water retention. I would have stopped. So where I draw the line is I'm not willing to sacrifice my health, right? Like that. This is where again it goes back to clarity on what it is but I'm willing to be in pain. I'm willing to suffer as long as I'm not doing long-term damage. In other words, like I'm willing to be, I'm willing to be exhausted. I'm willing to be drained. I'm willing to walk around with some fog, for a few weeks if that's necessary. I'm not willing to do damage to my kidneys or my liver or my brain or my heart or anything like that. And so that's where you've got to make that decision. Which TRT are you using? Testosterone cypionate. And let me say this for what it's worth. This is just me not on a soapbox because I don't judge anybody. at all. But there was a popular fitness influencer who I don't know is 36 or something like that, or or I might even be younger, and he was like, I'm on TRT, or he was on TRT. Um, if you don't need testosterone because your testosterone is normal, then you're not on TRT. You're juicing, right? That's not TRT. TRT is testosterone replacement. If you're adding to your testosterone, that's not testosterone replacement. That's just juicing at low dosage, right? To me, it is. I'll tell you that it is no different than when people say like, oh, you take testosterone. Well, diabetic takes insulin, right? Like in so many areas of our life, when we're deficient in something, we make up for it. If there was a natural way for me to do it, I would do it, right? But I tried and nothing worked, and I felt terrible from it. And so there is no, and I'm in no way, shape, or form ashamed of that. It's also why I'll tell you, when it comes to mental health, there are some people that have, where they've drained their neurochemicals, right? And their body just doesn't produce enough. And so they need to take an outside source to bring it up. That's no different than a diabetic taking insulin if their body doesn't produce enough insulin. No different. No shame in that whatsoever to me. And I think that it's terrible when people make others feel guilty of that. If you're at 600, Chris, I wouldn't do TRT. You don't need TRT. And so don't start. Like I wouldn't start it because you don't need it. I have a friend who's 63 years old and his testosterone's like 800. I'm like, I don't even understand. I know like he's not into fitness. He's not in health. He's not working out. He's not taking anything. Some of that is just genetic. My son is a young veteran. He recently started a new local service business in Tampa. He stripes parking lot lines. What might be a great checklist he can execute to dominate this area? Yeah, I'll save that post that in the E5 group. There are so many different Nick. Nick asked how many calories, how do I determine how many calories I should be eating per day? I think if you do search Paul Ravella Pro Physique. I think it's Pro Physique daily calories. Just Google that. I think it's Pro Physique daily calories. He's got like a very cool thing and it'll give you an estimate. It's a great place to start. 15,000, Jose. So 15,000. How do you deal with self-doubt? I don't. I don't mean I don't have self-doubt. I just mean when it comes to execution and like I doubt myself all the time. Like but I still execute. Like it's not like because I don't like, I know that that's all just mental. You know what I mean? Like it's not reality. It's for lack of a better phrase, I hate to be crass and say this, it's mental masturbation. Like, you know what I mean? Like I try not to engage because it's not real. It's not reality. It's an invention in your head. Like I'm going to create this campaign and it's going to bomb and it's not going to work. And well, that's just an invention in my head. That's just right. It's not real. You know what I mean? Like I deal in reality. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to publish it and I'll see how it performs. And then I'll be able to know whether it works or not. But anything else any judgment or like, it's just not based in reality. It's just within my head. And so I'm not even going to entertain it. So Nacho, post that question. If I had to start from scratch in marketing, where would I start? Let's keep the questions to this topic just to, but post that in the E5 group and I'll answer the question. Payman, cool. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, just wanted to say thank you. You're welcome. What brought you to choosing granite supplements? My coach. How do you know when a goal is genetic based? Beyonce, Picasso, and not achievable for most people versus when a goal is just discipline based and can be achieved by virtually anybody? It's a great question. I don't know if I have an exact answer. I mean, like, look, I think that, it really comes down to me for like, is this based on a talent that I would need to be born with? Or is this based on a skill that I can develop? Is this based on something that I can learn, that I can develop, that I can acquire? Or is this based on, something that I'm either born with or I'm not? So, let me just see here. I just want to scoot back. 5:30 a.m. Chris B. He's getting to the gym at 5:30. You're welcome. What are my health supplements after breakfast? So, my health supplements after breakfast. So I take a supplement called Liver Stable. I take Tudka. For liver health, those two. I take a high potency essential fatty acid. I take red yeast rice. I take citrus bergamot. And I take a green drink from Vibrant Health. And I take nattokinase. Those are what my health supplements are. And along with the green drink, I take something called kidney stuff. So I'm taking stuff for my kidney, I'm taking stuff for my liver, and I'm taking stuff for my heart. So Chris asks, how do you deal with unclarity or confusion when it comes to deciding what your next action step is, especially when something doesn't go as planned? So that's, so that's a big question. That's a hefty question. So there's an analysis process that I use, like that I would use, that I use like with clients, like to understand, like what went wrong, what went well, what didn't go well, with what went wrong, why did it go wrong, right? Like you to really, really, really simplify things and give a high level answer, Chris. So, number one is, was the plan followed? Like, or was there a recipe made? Well, if the plan was followed, right? Because if the plan wasn't followed, then we're not going to change the plan, and we're going to deal with why the plan wasn't followed, right? This is kind of even the same way that you should approach your business when you're managing and leading folks. And this is something that we talk about in Top One, just to give a plug, toddbrown.me/top one. Um, um, that, right? Was the plan followed? If the plan wasn't followed, right, then why wasn't the plan followed? The plan might not have been followed because, let's say, and I'm using this, I'm giving this in context of as a leader manager in your business. If the plan not followed because somebody didn't understand the plan, they weren't trained well, or did they just not follow the plan because for whatever other reason and they need to be reprimanded? Or was the plan followed and the plan just did, and the plan was followed, but the plan didn't produce the result? Well, if the plan was followed and just didn't produce the result, then we've got to analyze the plan to see why wasn't the result produced. Then we tweak the plan, right? And what to tweak comes about from the analysis. It's kind of the same thing on a micro level when we look at a campaign. And so let's say you look at a marketing campaign and the marketing campaign is just out of KPI, meaning the CPA is too high for, let's say, the AOV, to keep things real simple. Well, if the CPA is too high for the AOV, we've got to understand why. Right now we start with, on the media side, let's assume that we're using paid traffic. Well, is it because we're overpaying on the traffic side? Meaning, like, right. And so we've got to start with the media. We've got to confirm that it's not on the media side. Let's assume that it's not on the media side. Our click-through rate is good. Our cost per visitor is good. Then we look at the marketing performance side, right? And then we'll go step by step. Like, is it okay? Let's say we're using a two-step, we're using a lead magnet. Well, we're going to look at the opt-in rate, the sales conversion rate, the order form completion rate, the bump offer take rate, the upsell take rate. Now, let's say that all of those things, their performance level is where it should be. Like we've got, let's call it a 50% opt-in rate. We've got a 10% sales conversion rate, blah, 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 like all those pages. Well, then we might, we're going to be able to see that it's not a media issue. It's not a marketing performance issue. It's an economic issue. And now we've got to look at, right. We've got to look at price point, because we might have things just priced incorrectly for the market based on the cost of media and the cost of traffic. So there's an analysis process that you've got to go through. What you shouldn't be doing is merely guessing. What you shouldn't be doing is assuming. What you shouldn't be doing is just throwing a dart at the wall, because the beauty of the type of marketing that we do, direct response, is that it's all psychology, communication, and arithmetic. And in this case, the arithmetic is not referring to it's a numbers game with volume. The arithmetic is it's all data driven. And so the data, when looked at the right way, under the right lens, is going to tell us what the issue is, which is ultimately going to tell us what the next course of action is. This is why you can methodically and scientifically fix campaigns, right? Like when you know how to do it, you know what I mean? You can methodically and scientifically fix campaigns. What you don't want to do is make decisions subjectively. You want to make the least amount of direct response decisions subjectively, where it's based on your opinion, your feeling, your gut, what you like, what you don't like, etc. And you want to make the most amount of decisions objectively. And we do that with the arithmetic, with the data. Ben asked, do you drink black coffee before lists? No. How much time do you spend working and how much time with your family, wife? So I think, look, I would say that it's tough for me to answer because it's different on different days. Um, and so, and you know, one of my kids is now lives in her own apartment at school and uh is away. My other daughter, you know, going for about to graduate and then going to go for her master's degree. My other daughter, my older daughter, is going for her master's degree and she works full time as a teacher. Um, my wife actually took a job 3 days a week and like a property management thing just to get out of the house and give herself something to do. And so usually I spend time with them at night. My day is certainly done by certainly by 5:30 often, and then I have the rest of the evening and most of the weekends with them. And so hope that answers that. It looks like I got all the questions. And so there you go, gang. My hope for you is look, you know, I told you, you know, like I would just encourage you to be a beast. You know, I know that that said, you know, like be a beast, like go for it, man. Go all in on it. Be committed, be disciplined, choose, make the choice to. Don't make excuses for yourself because you know what? You're doing your future self a disservice. Like, right? Like imagine if your future self was here, you know, came back in time and saw you goofing off or saw you making excuses and your future self is paying the price for it. Your future self is paying the price for it, and your future self will pay the price for it. Your family will pay the price for it. You deserve better than that. You really do. I believe that. And that's why I did this, right? I believe that you deserve better than that. And I want that for you. I want that for you. And I believe that so much of this is a choice. It really is. You choose what to do. Don't stop buying into the pseudoscience. Stop buying into the fact that, well, you know, it's my self-esteem. Stop and choose to do the right thing and choose to do the right thing every day. Choose to be a beast. Choose to go for what it is that you want and go all in on it and go all in on it. And so a path to be a beast is to surround yourself with other beasts that elevate you. Amen. Great way to end it. Thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed this. I will try to send out the recording for you guys and gals. It's been my pleasure to be your guide, to be your beast on this beast mode training. I hope this inspired you. I hope this gave you something to really ponder, and I hope this really gave you something to do. And so with that, again, for those of you that want to check out Top One, toddbrown.me/top one. Talk to you guys later.